All right, shalom, shalom, family. I had to restart that other live. I don't know what happened, but we're breaking down Amos 9 and 7 genetically. So I'm just gonna basically summarize what we just talked about. Basically, just summarize what we just talked about, so that we can basically get a summary of all this. All this. All right. I gotta keep watch too because for some reason my sound be going out. I'm gonna drop a link in the chat. If anyone want to go come up and talk about these things, these are very ancient things that we're going to talk about. So, show my screen real fast. All right. All right. So, hopefully, all goes well this time as we're talking about some very, very, very deep things. So, going back to Amos, let's first break down Amos again, just for the sake of the live. So, this is going to be from Amos, right? The way that this is broken down is really interesting. You'll see right here, are not like the sons of the Ethiopians, you to me, sons of Israel, says the Most High, right? Did not Israel I bring up from the land of Egypt? See what's going on? And the Philistines from Captor, and the Syrian from Ker. So we're gonna break down. We're gonna break down what's being said here. That's what we're gonna do. We're gonna break down what's being said here, and it has to do with certain lineages. I'm gonna name 3 lineages, and I'm gonna prove it. So Israel is E1B1A. That's what I'm gonna prove, and the Syrian is E1B1B. That's what I'm gonna prove, and the individuals from Captor are individuals from CF groups. That's what I'm gonna prove. That's what I'm gonna prove today. So already we was making a map, and we're gonna prove. I'm gonna reprove what we just went over again, um, where we find these lineages. So let me actually first open up a map. First piece of information to make sure this didn't leave this page. All right. So I'm gonna point out what we just point out real fast. We're gonna be plotting these things on a map. We're going to be putting E1B1A, E1B1B, and CF groups on a map by their fossils, by their actual fossils, all BC time. We're not going to focus on AD. We're going to be getting into things of BC time, into BC time. Very important. So just re-summarizing everything, we're going E1B1A, E1B1B, and CF on a map by their fossils. This has not really been done. If you notice, but this has not really been done, for this being plotted down by ancient genetics, by its fossils, right? To be shown by its fossils. So this is going to be very important. And we're going to be using the actual fossils found. So we're not going to be using something hypothetical, no hypotheticals. It's going to be actual fossils found. But we're going to be, I'm going to have to be careful because we're getting on some very super deep stuff and everything. And I think I must have had muted my mic real fast on the other one and didn't unmute it. That's why usually I have like I just have a button where it works. But let me see these notes. I'm gonna see why they're not opening up real fast. Just refreshing it. I'm gonna close them and reopen them because we're gonna get on some very deep stuff. All right. Just gonna close these for now. All right. And this and reopening those. I'm gonna reopen these notes because I just had them open for some reason. They were misbehaving. All right, so what we're gonna be doing is we're gonna be basically putting all the fossils that we found in the last few years on one graph. On one graph, we're gonna put actual fossils on the graph, right? And gonna get a conclusion here. All right, let me open some notes here. There's a few notes, so need this one. And We need a few. So if you have any questions during this, let me know. Um, and we'll go over those live. Otherwise, we'll go over it afterwards if it's a question afterwards. But this is gonna be basically plotting down fossils for the understanding of Amos 9 and 7, and all the notes will be added afterwards. These notes will be added afterwards, as everything we do is free. It could be recreated, edited, what have you. It's for the sake of informations for those who are building or just interested in the information of the actual real stuff, real stuff in the world, not a made up thing, but actual real information. So this, let me just open up these notes, as it's going to be a very deep live. We found some very interesting fossils of some stuff that, if you take the world's view, you wouldn't believe that such things could be, that certain migrations can happen. So that's what we're going to be going over. I'm just going to let this one open real fast. Just open up these little notes here. All right. All right. All right. Got that one. All right. All right. Open up one more here. Setting the little table here. Because what we're gonna do, Amos, the book of Amos is a deep prophecy, but Amos 9 and 7 is incredible. It's genetically incredible. It's just incredible. It's the way, the accuracy of it, the details of it, locationally and per person, is very detailedly incredible. Is the best way to put it, and I think it requires a chance to be examined. It requires a chance to be examined. So let me see what's going on here. All right, all right, and this one, and I know I will need one afterwards. I'll open them whatever's needed. Let me just put this. All right, and there we go. So all right, now let's get into this to get an understanding on this. All right, so starting over, the understanding of this starts at Amos 9 and 7. So we're gonna break this down biblically, historically, basically genetically, and about individuals in Amos 9 and 7. So we're gonna be giving some biblical, historical, and genetic information on individuals in Amos 9 and 7. So it all begins with these, basically these circles, these little designs that are found in the Levant. It's very interesting. But first, it's going to have connections to what are called Natufians. But let's get a little quick summary on who are Natufians, right? The Natufian culture and the origin of the Neolithic in the Levant, right? Just getting a little understanding of some things here. Just get a little understanding of the people of the Levant. It basically gives us people from basically the Paleolithic and the Neolithic and early time frames of people who will be called Natufian and things like that, and get a little understanding on who is who and what is what. So basically, the Natufian are E groups that basically settled in basically lower Jordan or areas of the Levant, different things like that. And what's interesting is they also settled in areas like northern Syria. So that's very important. The reason why is because I believe the E group of the Natufian are highly talked about in Amos 9 and 7. I believe the E group are the Syrians, and I believe that they are also the Israelites. But we'll also talk about the CF groups of the Philistines. We'll talk about that as well, just to get a little understanding on that verse, on what's said there. First, let's look at this to get a little understanding of the connection of these people in Syria, Mesopotamia, and the Levant.
Archaeologists have discovered hundreds of ancient...
And I'm going to pause it. I just got to make sure I come back and unpause it.
stone wheels or circles spread across Syria, Saudi Arabia, Turkey, and Jordan, but don't know why they were built or who built them. They are sometimes called a Middle Eastern version of the Nazca lines, and recently, due to new satellite mapping technologies and an aerial photography program in Jordan, researchers are discovering more of them than ever before. Today, they number well into their thousands. Some of these large structures, known by the Bedouin as the works of the old men, are thought to date back 9,000 years, and archaeologists initially believed that some of them were used as cemeteries. No one is yet sure. Amelia Sparavingia at Politecnico di Torino, Italy, believes that the Middle Eastern stone structures should be thought as geoglyphs in the same way as the Nazca lines are. She also thinks it's possible that the function of the wheels may have been similar to the mysterious drawings in the Nazca Desert. She commented, "If we define a geoglyph as a wide sign on the ground of artificial origin, the stone circles are geoglyphs. If we consider more generally the stone circles as worship places of ancestors or places for rituals connected with astronomical events or with seasons, they could have the same function of the geoglyphs of South America, the Nazca lines, for instance. The design is..."
All right, so heard what it just said there. It talks about these circles, these designs had basically migrated to South America, right? So to hear that again before we look at this information.
With seasons, they could have the same function of the geoglyphs of South America, the Nazca lines, for instance. The design is different, but the function could be the same.
So let me go down real fast and talk about what we're going to be talking about here real fast. Actually, on a different one over here. Let me open up a note here. So basically, what they're talking about here is they're talking about this design has connections to Syria, to the Levant, and it has connections with South America. What's interesting about that is that the reason why I pointed out of the Natufians because we're going to look at some very interesting genetics to get a little understanding who are the people that have moved around throughout the land. Let me go to a note here and open it up as this one I need too. Okay. So we're going to be looking at some fire. Good understanding on some ancient genetics. And everything we're going to be basically plotting down is who is in basically BC time. So I'm going to show you some of the earliest mummies. This is going to be the world's oldest mummies. They're going to be in South America. So very important. I'm actually going to show you what we find here. This is going to be from this paper. And this paper is going to be called, I'm going to go up. It's going to be called right here, Ancient Human Genome Wide Data from a 3,000-year-old, basically individuals from the Caucasus and different areas like that. But they end up basically doing studies on individuals who are in the Caucasus and also in different areas throughout the world, pretty much. They find different information for different individuals. And I'm going to pull up basically a paper that they have. So this is going to be a screenshot. What we actually found there was a E1B1A, but we'll also talk about other groups that we found there. I'm just going to open up the PDF. All right. And we're going to have Brother Will, son of Yah, also, if he get the chance to check these things out with us and give some of his, a second opinion on these things, as they can be very deep. Shalom, shalom, brother. How's it going?
Shalom, brother. It's
Shalom,
going good
shalom.
on this beautiful Sunday,
Amen. That's what I want to hear. Amen. Easy breezy. Let's get a little understanding on what we found here. So now, Will, remember I was showing you that little find that we had found the other day of that E group that went across the seas. See if I find it here. Sometimes my
Yes,
eyes
that
keep closed.
fine was amazing, groundbreaking.
It's a groundbreaking find, and that's what we're gonna note here. Is we're gonna note who is who. The first thing we're gonna note is that there was a lot of genetics that went overseas. We had A groups that went overseas. This is about 6,000 years. This is just remember I was noting this. A groups, just make a mental note that A group A and B are gonna be the real Hemites. But notice they also went overseas. They're gonna be a group that also had went overseas. It says British Columbia and whatnot. I actually don't know exactly where that is, British Columbia. Maybe that's in Canada. So Canada. But this one right here, E1B1, E1B1A, 1A. This is E1B1A, and we actually found it in the lands of South America. How you say that? What's that? How you say that? That's Arica and
Yes,
Chile.
Medras.
Yup, Bedrias and Chile.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna put that. Is it Chile?
Yes, that's how they
That's how
pronounce
they
it. They actually pronounce it Chile.
Chile. I was thinking that it was Chile. I was just saying it because the way that it's spelled. I was like, no, is that Chile? Yeah, that's Chile. So right here, this is where that E1B1A is that was found, and we're gonna also confirm everything because what we're gonna do is we're gonna put them on this little list. I don't know what I opened right here. Close this. Whatever this thing is. All right, so we're gonna be plotting them on a map. So what we also have to know so that it's not confusing with all these things. I had to reset it live, but we confirmed all these things. I'm going to reconfirm them. This circle right here is going to be A00. We found Mota. We'll talk about that too, the age of these individuals, but the find that we found here is older than the Mota. The find that we found here is actually 6,000 years ago. It will be 4,000. And remember, these years are exaggerated. That's very important to understand when you think about these years. But it's letting us know what's older. It's letting us know which ones are older. So this one's older, going to be older than the Mota find. We'll talk about that also on here. So E1B1A found in the lands of Chile. This is going to be 6,000 years ago. This is going to be about 4,000 BC. So very important to get a little understand on this. They're going to be in the lands of America. So that's very important. They're going to be in the lands of the South America. So that's very important. Why is that important? Because it lets us know before they even was in Africa, they had traveled overseas. And this also is important to know a little about the history. Is that the culture, the people that's there is a seafaring people. They're basically a seafaring people that basically went across seas and everything. Just a little understanding. You can see right here on the UNESCO. So I'm gonna put this. I'll put this note in the description afterwards. But it's a natural, or in a sense, artificial mummification of individuals in the areas of Arica. So you can see right here in Chile, gonna be basically a culture that's protected by UNESCO. They talk about this culture was there about 5,000 years ago to said BC. So very important. Now we already talked about this, that people who were in the lands of the Levant have migrated overseas, and that's what's also connecting. A little more on this piece.
Dr. Garrett Rollison.
Go ahead.
I was gonna say before you bring that out, I just want to point out on that last source you just had that it stated that they were a marine type hunter gatherer culture.
Oh, that's right. That's right too. It's important to note that this culture actually hunted by sea. This culture actually would be a seafaring people known as a people that went overseas.
Right. Which would explain those foreign haplogroups.
That's right. That's right. Let me go over here because we're going to connect them with the Natufian that are older than these ones. The Natufian finds are actually going to be older than this culture right here. So here's the culture right here. This is going to be the culture right here. And it's going to be in South America. So you're going to see it's going to be from 9,000 to 3,000 years before present. So years before present is about 7,000 to 1,500 BC. So very important. It's gonna be a long time ago for these individuals. And this is gonna be an ancient culture. It even tells us here that they talk about their lifestyle and everything. They basically lived on the fish and the seashells and sea mammals and everything. And they talk about they're seafaring people pretty much. They go across the seas and everything. But it lets us know that these are going to be ancient cultures and everything. It lets us know about their movement and whatnot. This just gives us a little information on where they were found, and we talked about that in this little area in Chile. So it's going to talk about those ancient mummies and everything. But notice it lets us know that these ones will be like very old. They're being mummified a long time ago, BC time, to get a little understanding on that. So seafaring people came here, and they were going to be connected to the E1B1A group. So and not just E1B1A, the older people there are actually going to be your Q groups, your C groups, right? These are going to be newcomers that came across over there. So that's very important. Very, very important. Let me make sure I plug this up so that it don't die. All right. So very important. The seafaring people that came across the seas a long time ago. Very, very long time ago. All right. And we're going to look at the information on these individuals. Just to get a quick read on them. It says right here, according to this person and others, there are large numbers, perhaps hundreds of these individuals, or how you say that, Charo. Probably said that. Chinchiro. There it is. That sounds better. Chincharos. So mummies buried just beneath the sandy surface in valleys throughout the region. So they're saying that this was an accident that they found this, right? They found this in 2021. I also should talk about that when we talk about the UNESCO information. I don't know why I just closed. Let me go to recently closed tabs so I can see what I closed there. Let me open that. I might need that a little later. This one's for something else. We'll talk about that.
34 right here.
This is for something else. We'll talk about with the E group. I'll just go to this little timestamp.
Match history.
Leave that right there. All right. Let me go back over here. So remember what we were just talking about when we was talking about the fossils that were found there, and also a little bit of the people, the basically a little history of the people. Just lets us know they were buried they're just underneath the surface in this little desert area, and they are often uncovered during new construction and public work projects, right? That's very important. It just lets you know that's how they're found. They're basically being found on accident and everything. So this is just a little information. I'll put this note in the description if you want to see a little bit more on these finds and everything. But let's go a little more, because on this little PDF, it doesn't just have that, but it has information just so we can reconfirm some things. Let me open up this a little more. All right. So scrolling down. Now, what's also interesting is that this paper also has, you see that A group? You can see it's going to be in the area of Canada, right? We talked about that. Just note that the A group is going to be the real Hamites. Here's another A group. You can see right here. I actually don't 100% know where this is or what it's saying.
That's very interesting. If I may add quick.
Go ahead.
Because you just showed the first marker Canada. Right, and then you see another A marker in Argentina.
Isn't that interesting?
So that could, I'm about to say possibly showing a migration from Canada now to Argentina, possibly, because we do find certain, not a lot, but A markers in the eastern side of the world, beyond Africa.
So let's make a mental note of that we confirmed an A going in Canada, and we found an A in South America. So the A group could have went across the Bering Strait, and then coming back around, it would have been in Canada, and then it would have also came into Argentina. It's either that or it has
other American routes.
Yep, that's right. That's right. So it could have took a ship across, or it could have traveled across with the Native Americans, or took whatever route it was. But we do have fossils of them in Canada and in areas of South America. Everything that I'm showing you is BC time. So we're noting BC. Everything's gonna be. Let's actually just type that down at the bottom. Everything BC, just for the sake of the truth. Let's just put that on here. But yeah, as soon as you said Argentina, that's important to note. So everything is BC. So everything that I'm going to show on this map is going to be BC time. We'll confirm these as well. So E1B1A, we have found going across here. So that's very important. BC time frame. And A groups going over here as well. So that's very important. And remember, we already confirmed it. A group up here as well. So we'll keep on confirming stuff. So going down, I'm gonna open this. All right. So you can see here's another one, another A, or is that the same? No, this is an older one. This one's in Africa. This is the one that we was just pointing out. This one's actually in Africa. This one right here is actually in Africa, in the lands of Africa. Let me actually just put it on the map here. So this one said 6,000 BC. So I think I didn't copy it. So this one right here. It's just an important mental note because it's important to note that the A group didn't only stay in Africa, but it is going to be your Hamitic lineage. So it is in Africa, though, much older than any E1B1A goes down there. So A group is going to be down there. Now, I'm not saying it's older, but it's down in Africa at an earlier stage. It's down inside Africa at an earlier stage. So you can see right there, said 8,000 years ago, but that's 6,000 BC. Let's get a little understanding. And that's the A group. Keep on going here. So we expect them to see them in Africa. Places where they don't expect to see them, actually A is actually in the north. So you can see right here, A00. We mean to go down right there with a U5. Where's that U5 from? From the north. So this one right here, 10,000 years ago, because I talked about this, Nimrod settled in the north. Helm settled in the north, a lot in the north. So you also see him in Africa and in north, because Mizraim, obviously being of Egypt, would be in Africa, and then having different Hamites like the Canaanites. That's what this the Philistines actually came from Captor, and we're gonna connect that. That's from Crete, and we'll connect that from the north. That's important. So this A group is gonna be in the north with this mtDNA. So very interesting to take a note of that from France. So that just make a mental note of that. France, about Germany. Go a little down.
We know for sure those are mtDNAs from the north because people like our Roman rumors have them, or had those groups, mtDNA haplogroup. And even the Moors, when they was in Spain, some of the barriers had mtDNA haplogroup.
Mm-hmm. And we know it's in the north too because ancient Cheddar Man had that lineage. Ancient Cheddar Man had a U2. His Y DNA is I. Now I want to show you the only fossil we have of CF. The only fossil that we have of CF is in the lands of Spain, and that's what we noted here. CF is right here. There's going to be the CF groups. I'll just make this a square. So the square is going to be CF. I'm just going to put a square here. So in Spain, matter of fact, I'll just leave that. I'll just leave this one like that. So CF, there's going to be CF in Spain. And CF also is going to make HIJK, GHIJK, and IJK, which those are going to be in Germany. They're going to come from here and they're going to go to Germany. So that's just something to note. This is the only fossil, what you're seeing here, the CF, this is the only fossil of CF, the real root of CF, the only fossil of CF found in Spain. That's the only one that we have. we're gonna note that the Natufian homeland is gonna be here. We'll note that when we start getting on E1B1Bs, which they'll start popping up on this. Go down. So we need CF because there's right there IJK. That's where every J, every I, and every K, which includes T, comes from. Like LT. See that LT right? Is very important. The LT, right? LT was one, but they initially came from K. So that's very important. Those are going to be in the areas, as you can see, Germany is going to be in Germany. So very important early on groups. Going to be in
And that
IJK
IJK lineage, not to cut you off, but just to throw for the audience, that IJK lineage is where you would get a lot of your modern Ashkenazi and also Sephardi Jews from.
Absolutely.
And we know that's not related to Semitic peoples.
Absolutely. And we already went through a breakdown of it before, but I'm just going to show it real quick on a chart before we start charting them down. The reason why we need that, because we got to know those roots. You got to note that a fossil, because a lot of people, they take CF and they want to place it where they want. Sometimes they put it in the Levant. Sometimes they put it in Iran. But CF, the only fossil of CF is in Spain. The only one. The only fossil of CF. That makes all the groups after it. The only fossil of CF was found in Spain. So right here, that's going to be your CF. If we close that, everything under CF is one. Everything under CF is one family. So if anyone can show another CF in another location, then we'll put CF location in another place. But till then, CF is always going to be a Spain group, a group that originally came out from Spain and settled in different areas. But it's going to obviously be in connection to where everyone got off the ark and split and went their own ways. But CF must have went up north and dwelled up there for a long time, as far as Spain. And that's going to be an area where they met the Neanderthals, because that's where the Neanderthals were mainly set up at, in areas of Spain, in different areas like that. That's very, very important. But we'll get into some of those things as well. So IJK in Germany. And that's why we put that on this right here. IJK right there in the areas of Germany. I'll just put a little block right there. So IJK. That's gonna be that's we're noting where they're going, right? Where they split. We're gonna get to the E. Let's keep going. We're gonna get to the roots of E because we want to note the E1B1. Where is the oldest E1B1 that makes your other E groups? So we'll note that. E1B1B, we already noted this. It was in the lands of Jordan. So Jordan, we're gonna have E1B1B. I'm gonna go down. We're gonna keep on keeping on real fast. All right, there's another E1B1B. Where is it at? Armenia. So this E1B1B is found in the lands of Armenia, and it said 14,000 BC, or 1400 BC. So 1,400 BC. That's one.
That's very, very interesting.
Mm-hmm. That's right. That's right. And anytime, Will, you can always chime in. It's no interruption to me when you speak. It's always good. So right here, in fact, that's the wrong color. So we're gonna put E1B1B right here in Armenia. So right there. So we're gonna know E1B1B gonna be in these different areas. So far, we confirmed Armenia, and we know that E1 is gonna start here because the oldest E that we found was actually in the lands of the Levant. So that's very important. We already talked about that. It was about 39,000 years ago. Go down a little bit. And there's another E1B1B in the lands of Israel. You can see right there, that's going to be the Natufian time frame. In fact, this should say Natufian. Yeah, right there. So this is going to be a Natufian. So the oldest E's are found in Levant. The oldest E's are found in Levant. There's an A group. Notice right here, this is a really old one. Chaz Republic, right? That should be in the north, right? That's an area in the north right there. I don't know why. Okay. That's gonna be in the north. I'm just gonna copy it just so that we can put it on the map. Just to make a mental note. Just to make a mental note of the A groups. That the A groups, Nimrod and all that, they went north, right? So right here, you can see right there, just make a mental note that moved with them. They was moving throughout the lands, because a lot of times when you see maps of the upper area, a lot of times they exclude genetics or different things. But here you're gonna get the whole picture. So A groups do go north, and they're gonna be settled in these areas. So that's just important. Just make a mental note.
So like the brother said, we should expect to see these autochthonous, I guess you could say Hamite or Hamite haplogroups in the north. If you look at the biblical narrative, there would be offsprings of Nimrod and tribesmen left in those localities. They would have either stayed there or fled to the north or fled to the south. And we can see evidence of both.
That's absolutely right. And here we can see a E1B1A. This is actually going to be Mota. You can see it's in a Mota cave. So Mota cave, that's going to be Mota in Ethiopia. We know where that's at. But notice the year of this. This is going to be about 4,000 years ago. That's 2,500 BC. I'm going to go up real fast. Remember, the one that we found in South America is older than that. So before you even get this lineage in Africa, before that, you're going to get this lineage basically going overseas and everything. This is why I was talking about the route of Eber and everything. That Eber basically moved in different areas and have connection to the Iberusians, or how you say that, and going in different areas. But notice right here, the other one wasn't as old as this one. This one said 5,000 years ago. Said 3,900 BC. So this one's older in South America. So that's very important. It's not in Africa until later. That's very important. But this is and we're gonna also note that this lineage comes from the Natufian E1B1, which is in Israel. So its homeland is actually going to be in the Levant, but it also is going to have connections to Mesopotamia. We'll talk about that when we get there as well. Let me just go down a little bit. So another one, E1B1B, we already talked about that in Jordan. Going down.
It's funny how so much more haplotypes are found within the supplementary data tables and stuff opposed to them just putting within the articles.
Isn't it interesting? It's very interesting that you never hear about some of these finds and nor papers that come out with these finds, but they're in the data sheet. So that's very interesting. So this one's younger than the one that went across over America. So very important. They say that's the first time E ever got into Africa. So before he got into Africa, it was in America, in the South Americas. So very important. You never hear nothing about that. But that makes sense because it was found in 2021. Here's E1. That's just in the area of Natufian. Go down a little more. Here's another A group. You can see this one would be basically, this one's still fairly young ones, right? Those are still BC though, like 100 BC. There's some older ones we'll look at. Here's the E1B1B. Remember we talked about that? E1B1B went into Kenya. We put that on the map right there. E1B1B, that's the diamond right there, the red one. E1B1B went into Kenya, but that's after its homeland. After its homeland. So you see how these lines show up? Mm-hmm. That's right. That's real early because the one that's found in this area is much older. Much older. Go down. So E1B1B. And here's an E group. This one's not talked about a lot, but there is an E group, and it's most likely the root. And this E group has a U8. U8 makes K, and is found in Ukraine. So it's a lot of stuff going on in Ukraine today, But this one is a genetic find that's found in Ukraine. We should probably put that is right here. Or I don't know. This one, we're going to actually move this one. This one, we're going to note as well. Because that one's going to be one from Germany. We're just re-verifying everything. But this one's going to be from Ukraine. Let me make sure I put this on there. I don't know why I clicked that. All right, so Ukraine, you know where Ukraine is, right? It's going at it with Russia and everything there. But just get that little pinpoint. So right there, Ukraine. So Ukraine's going at it with Russia and everything, but that's where we also going to note, right, where other E groups are. So right there. So we're gonna have a little understanding on these things. Get a little understanding. So you can see. So Ukraine, right here, having connections with this. So very important. Let's go back over there. So that's why you see these dots here. We're just reconfirming them. So here, we confirmed this one. We just confirmed this. We'll confirm the one in Egypt as well. So, and remember E1, B1A, here, here, but ultimately connecting to here. Because that E1, B1, which we'll point out too on here. Go down a little bit. And point out different one here. There's just make a mental note of this. There's another A with an N mtDNA in Great Britain. So Great Britain, you can see what's going on there. What is that? Great Britain right here. Bell Beaker, England. Now, I talked about this before that in England, there's a lot of Hamites that are found, a lot of A groups that are found in England that actually, the A group, a lot of them are pale skin. A lot of A groups actually have pale skin, which is really interesting, but they're known as being African groups. But some of them have pale skin. So that's something also to note. So that's this one. I'll just put that real fast.
And that's all the way in 2000 BCE.
2000 BC. That's right. Oh, that's spelled that right. No Beaker. Or let's put, because I want to just point it out with the map. Let me copy the pinpoint of that location. I don't know if he'll find it with this. Stock on trees, country, Great Britain. Let's just put Great Britain just to see if it'll give me just the location, just to show where it's at, right? United Kingdom and everything. So right here. So you'll know that if you look up E1, B1 in Scotland, right? E1 or not E1, A1 has a high portion in Scotland, pretty much. We talked about that before. So A groups up there, way up there in 2000 year time frame. So a long time ago. Let's go over here. Keep on going. Just make a mental note of the A group because we'll talk about the A group as it being Hamites. It's going to be an A group that actually moved with the Sea Peoples. It's very important. We'll talk about that. I'll confirm it with Crete's movements that we can find that in the movement of it all. But going down, another A. Notice that one we talked about that. Czech Republic, still BC, 2000 BC. So A group, very important. Going down. All right. So A groups, just note those ones are in Africa. So you can see there, look at that. 8,000 years ago, 6,000 BC, right? It's going to be in Africa. This one as well is going to be noted in the areas of Italy. Now, this one's really interesting. This is an A group in 2000 BC, 1800 BC, in the lands of Sicily, Italy. So, very important. Some would even say that's Indo-European. Isn't that interesting? An A group as an Indo-European that is declared African, but is in the areas of Italy. Go down a little bit. Here's another A group in the lands of Germany. You can see this A group in the lands of Germany, and you can see it about 2000 BC, 2500 BC. Very important. Another A group in Portugal. This one in Portugal with a K mtDNA, 2700 BC. So a long time ago. We want to keep on going. Those are the African groups, right? There's one in Spain, long time ago, 2500 to 2000 BC, Spain. See what? And notice that it's always with those. Notice the mtDNA that is with, right? because a lot of times in an area, that's sometimes what you see is certain groups when they move together, they start mixing. They start mixing as well. There's the E1B1B. That's what a U6. That's in Egypt. You can see that's about right before the time of Christ, about 97 BC to almost AD time. So that's a E. That's what we put there as well, right? E1B1B in the lands of Egypt. So very important. Everything that we're putting down is only BC time frame. That's all that we're putting down. There's your A. Remember, that's in Africa, this area right here. It's 8,000 years ago. Go down a little bit. And there's the E1B1 right there in the lands of Israel. Notice that year. That's very important. So we also have to know that that's going to be the homeland. So E1B1 is P2. P2 makes E1B1A and E1B1B. So that's why we put the homeland right here. So that circle right there, that's the homeland of E. The homeland is right here. And we're going to connect it with Mesopotamia. So it's going to actually with Mesopotamia. So very important to note these migrations of these groups. Very, very important. Keep on going. So E1B1B, Jordan, we already got those down because that's going to be in the homeland. And those are early on, very early years, very early. We'll connect some things when we talk about some of these things. We'll connect some of these things. So DE, that one we're not going to put on the chart because we know that DE, we got one that's in Asia, said 50, 60,000 years ago, close to there. Right here, you can see some more A groups, right? More Helmetic lineages. Long time ago in Germany. Long time ago. A group in Germany and France. So very important. A groups in Germany and France. Because the biblical narrative is more complex than what the out of Africa concept is trying to tell. So very important. Another one right here, much older than those ones in Belgium. So very, very old. A in the north, outside of Africa. Some more A's. These are Africa. These are your normal African. That's why they call them African. Everything they usually find them in Africa, whatnot. But note migration. Okay. Here's some more E1B1B. Where is this? I'm not 100%. I'm gonna copy it.
That's the Canary Islands, right off the side of Portugal, Spain,
Canary Islands.
Morocco. Yeah. And it's
That's
funny,
right.
it's funny again because I think they actually found like one E3A sample with them, but it's not in this chart.
Interesting. Let me see. See, and that's what's interesting because this one we won't put this on the chart because this one's AD time frame, but that's like that's like after or about the time of when they left Israel and the Islamic conquest and everything. That would be about that time, a little later.
Right.
So that's that list. What's on here. So the main thing I wanted to show was that A E1B1A. That's the main thing I wanted to show is E1B1A that traveled overseas. That we also noticed that A had got over there. So A found in Canada and found in South America, ancient times, BC times, and E1B1A also traveled overseas, ancient times, BC times. Before it even got in Africa. Before it got in Africa, it was overseas. Before it got in Africa, it went overseas. But remember, its homeland is going to be in the Mesopotamia, Levant. Very important. Close that. All right, so you can see what's going on there. Go back to some over here. So that's why this is going to be in a note. I'll put this in a note for that screenshot, and you'll just see that screenshot right there. You can see this will be the location here in Chile, and it will be about 5,000 years ago. So 3,000 to 3,900 BC. And always remember when I went over it before that these years are exaggerated. That's very important. You can see right here. But that's letting us know the most important thing that we need to know is that before you even get Mota in Africa, this lineage traveled overseas from the north. So before it even touched Africa, it was traveling overseas and connected to Mesopotamia and certain areas. Very
And
important.
just to add on Mota, his findings actually showed that with him migrating into Africa, it started a large Eurasian migration into East Africa and further on. And
That's
then
right.
he actually had Eurasian ancestry autosomally.
That's right. Yep, that's right. Mota had that L lineage that was changing, that was turning into the lineages underneath it. So very important. That's at least to what the scientists say. Say it was changing underneath it. But it's also noted that supposedly there's 3 known splits for the females, though they're all going to be one with Eve. But that's going to be that lineage. When we think about Mota, they link, all them link together to the E1B1, the oldest E1B1 that was in the Levant. So that's very important. Those are going to be younger than the one that was found in the Levant. That means they come from it. Also, we know that the oldest E1B1A, let's actually throw that on there real fast, Will. Remember that E1B1A we was talking about that we found in Iran?
Yeah,
and said, what was those caves?
like Turkmenistan, the BMAC culture.
Yeah, in fact, I have that. I believe I have that on here. In fact, it's what is it? What would you say it was? BMAC?
Yes, the BMAC culture, and also the Oxus. That's like Afghanistan, Turkmenistan.
Like a long time ago.
Yes.
We gonna grab.
No. I don't think that was the one from a long time. You're talking about the one from 12,000 years ago in Iran.
Oh yeah, yes. Just so that we can throw it on the this BC movements.
Let me see if I can find it.
All right. So what I'm showing here is that in the genetics that I was showing the other day or the other time when I was talking about the Bronze Age samples that were found, there's a sample that was an E1B1A that was found in basically this little paper right here, the formation of South and Central Asia. I had showed this before. And if we go to the right here, the supplement material, we can easily get a PDF opening up, which it should, I'm thinking. If it doesn't, I already got it. All right, there you go. I just cancel one of these. There you go. It's just opening it up real fast. So here it is. We're going to throw this on the chart as well. What do we find on this sheet? Just going to go down. This little thing. I don't know why this one. The one I found the original copy. This probably not the original copy because they be trying to change stuff. So let me go to the one I found. That's why I got a little headache because the one I found was a little hard to find. I'm gonna grab it from my note. In fact, I'll just go to it on YouTube. What video is it? We went over it. That summarized it pretty well.
Okay, here's a new and interesting look at that.
In fact, it might be that paper right there. But I'll go to it on here. So we had talked about it. It was on this video right here. So this one right here where I say tell us plain.
People don't like their worldview destroyed.
So very important. This is going to be basically where I talk about E1B1A. I put it on here. Right here is secret origins. All right. And it's right at the bottom. Down here. So remember we talked about those Ethiopians and everything, and I was talking about how few people know this, but 6% of the Ethiopians are E1B1A. Look it up. The Omic people. E1B1 makes the Omic people. And E1B1A. The Omics are E1B1A. You can look it up. It's not hard to find. So you can see right there.
Ask you a question.
Go ahead.
Would you say that the Ibero-Maurusians is the ancestral population of the Natufians, or the Natufians is the ancestral population of Ibero-Maurusians?
I would say that the Natufians are the ones that make the Iberasians.
Now, if that's the case, we know for sure that the Natufians would have been able to produce E1B1A because, again, the Ibero-Maurusians themselves had a E1B1A sample amongst them.
That's right. That's right. That's I'm glad when you pointed that out. That was amazing because that's what I was saying. That's what I was saying, that the Iberasians were a break from the Natufians. I'm glad that you had found that and pointed that out. Let me see on here. All right. So right here, you can see. I don't know why this note looks like this, but so you can see here's the one with the actual list. This is the one I found. That obviously we sharing with the brothers and everything so that they can share and whatnot. But this is the one I found so that we can know that it is an E1B1A that was found there. It is an E1B1A that was actually found there. Let's see where it is real fast. They also found E1. That's important too. The E groups, E1B1 or E1A is in Pakistan and India, right? Because it said the Shemites were in India and the upper areas, because that's where you get other E groups. The E1 and E2. E1 and E2 I found in India and Pakistan. There's some more in India. Those are some more settled there. Let me see where is that on here. The E1A. I probably overlooked it. I don't know why I be doing that sometimes. There it is. E1 Turkmenistan. Right? Go down. Right? This is and that's 2000. That's 2000 BC. 2000 BC outside of Africa. So let's put that. That's in the lands of Turkey, and the reason why also is because you gotta note that people are moving together and whatnot. Just gonna copy that, and now I'm gonna put this on a map.
What study did you get from brother? Because I was just looking for that chart.
Isn't it interesting? I could not find this chart except when I don't know how I found it. I found the original paper, and I found on this original paper. But if you try to find it normally, you can't find it. You can't find it with the actual printouts like this. I had to use DuckDuckGo and use the Angel Source and put this on here. But I'll give it to you. I'll give it to you so you can have it. Because yeah. And you see how that is? How they try to hide stuff. So right here, Afghanistan and Iran. So this one right here. Also, there's another one on that paper. Go to it. That's why I was getting a headache trying to find it to confirm, because I know how people remember that person came on there like, no, because of the derived states. I'm like, what are you talking about derived states? We got the actual original paper. Now we don't have to talk derived states, because a lot of people, they don't like to see the ones with ancestral and derived states. They think those are something else. There it is in Iran. So that one's the oldest. This is the oldest E1B1A said found, which, remember, these dates are exaggerated, but you can see right there. There's no older E's than these ones found. So these will be E's that are found crossing Mesopotamia. So that's going to give us a little understanding there. Close that. So remember, that right there is going to be the one in Iran. You can see right there. E1B1A with a K2. And I'll give you that. I'll give you that with the it's on other video, but I'll give you that because you just saw it. I tried to open it up from the Wikipedia, and it gave me some other source.
And just to add what you just brought out with E1, B1A being that area anciently, and YSRT, haplotype diversity in mtDNA, HVIC was variation among major tribes of Khorasan and Mardan district. This is dealing with Afghanistan. It tells us that E1B1A comprises about 70% of the populations in Pakistan and Afghanistan.
Isn't that interesting? And that's the stuff that's not really talked about. But E groups were up here. E groups were here, going over here, going down over here, and spreading over here. We're gonna also connect them over here because we just found an E1B1B over here. Let me actually show you the oldest E in the north that I found. Let me close this and open the one that I found. The oldest E is about 16,000 years ago, said in the north. But that's like the root E, because I believe they got off of when they got off of Mount Ararat, they really settled a lot in the north. They settled a lot in the north. But that's the thing. The E group is mainly in the Levant in Mesopotamia. I'm gonna open up a note here, and that's what happens sometimes. We end up finding these things on accident. Let's see this one. This one I found when I was trying to look up the oldest Indo-European line I can possibly find, by not using wiki and using sources and whatnot. But I ended up finding the E, and I thought that was interesting. Let me see. Down here, I'm gonna open it up, and this one is with also a European. They said European mtDNA. So let me grab that one real fast from here. This little note is bigger, but I gotta recall. Close that. I know it's on here, sheet 19. I don't think it's on this little scroll. No, let me close that. Right here. Open up the wrong one. This is what I want to open up. All right, I'm gonna show you that other E that's found. There we go. I don't know why. All right. So I'll show you that other E that's found. Number, was it 19? So right here, you can see it's going to be a list. I always want to see, where is it? So you can see the age here. So this is the oldest E. This is an E group with V3A. And you can see the year there. Very, very old, right? That's way older than anyone that's found outside of, or anyone that's found in Africa. There's no E that's found in Africa older than this one's, whatnot. You can see right here, that's going to be with a mtDNA as such. And this is this place. I'm going to copy it just to show where is it located. Where is that E located? If it'll show me. Should be right up here in Germany. Yep, right there. So you can see Hungary, right? That location, that's where that E was found, right here in this location, in this little village. And obviously, clicking wiki just to get a little understanding of the region and everything. It'll talk about region and everything, and go a little bit into it, whatnot. But I'm gonna close that. So that's where we found that other E. So that's another E. That's why we put right here, E was over here. So technically E1 B1A will have connections there too, but we'll just leave that as E. So we'll just leave an E right there. So E1 B1B, we already confirmed also E1 B1B there. But just to get a little understanding that E was found there. And that's an old find. That's a very old find of E. Very old find. We'll close that. And that's just for the sake of the confirmation, to confirm that there was a E up there. So ancient E's in there. Ancient E's. Let me close that. So get a little understanding. Now let's get back to the Amos note over here. So now we're all caught up. Now we're caught up to back to where we were from the other live when we was bringing these things out, and I must have muted and didn't unmute it or something, and it went for a while without going. So just make it a little more clear. So remember, we just confirmed that the E homeland is in the Paleolithic Natufian, and just to show it, I should show this for the sake of the live that you have. Matter of fact, it's okay. I actually have it in this note. We'll scan over it when we go over the note. That we have an E that's 39 that said 39,000 years ago in Mesopotamia, Levant. So very important. But getting a little understanding, that's why we're looking at Amos, because I believe the Syrian is E1B1B. I believe the Israelite is E1B1A. And I believe that the CF is going to bring forth those, how you say, Philistines. But they move with your A groups. We're going to note that. So going into a little more stuff right here. Let me just bring this little thing out. So ancient DNA links, go down a little bit. Ancient DNA links Natufian hunter-gatherers with Neolithic Levant farmers. So very important. Why is that? Just letting us know that the Natufian were in the Levant basically spreading out and basically increasing in areas. It talks about all the individuals that were found and everything. Also, you can see right here, like all Natufians, the inhabitants of basically this certain cave derived half of their ancestries from Basal Eurasians. So very important. The Basal Eurasians are a lineage thought to have split off prior to the basically other individuals in European lineages. And prior to the interbreeding between Neanderthals and modern humans that occurred 50,000 to 60,000 years ago. Basically, it's important to note that a lot of the ones in Europe, they had bred with the Neanderthals, but it'll start saying basically the Natufians didn't really breed that much with them, but there is some breeding in certain groups of Natufian. Not the majority of Natufian, but in certain groups. Apparently there was some. I'll talk about that too. But here's where it's going to start connecting. It's going to connect to a group that we're going to go over later, and they're going to be called the Gasulians. They're going to be something that's important to note. But it's going to talk about some inhabitants that inhabited 8,000 years ago. It's going to go down a little bit. And just getting a little understanding. I'm going to leave this. I'm going to just leave that there. So very important in what that is. So let me actually, this is what I meant to do. Copy this and actually point this out on this thing. Let me actually point this out on here and let this thing load in. All right. Let me point this out. So right here, you can see a little talk, Copper Age and Gasulian culture. Now, remember, this is talk about the connection with the Natufians. This is also a Levantan population where we also get E groups in, the Gasulians. Just talks about us, basically talks about things, what's going on, this new Copper Age, right? Because the Natufians didn't just leave the Levant, didn't just go from the Natufian time and all of a sudden they all vanished. They stayed in the Levant. This new Copper Age society, as known as the Gasulian culture in the Levant. Just talk about this culture. We'll go into some history onto this culture, a little bit on this culture. But just understand that the Gasulians were there to like 8,000 to like 4,000 or even late earlier than that, like 2,000, things like that. But let me show you something. Click this. All right, so getting a little understanding from the introduction of basically the place of Gasul in Jordan. So Gasulians, they're mostly in the lands of Jordan. It says 6,000 years and everything. And it also talks about basically a collection of them from 4,000, 3,000, whatnot. We'll go into the details of it as we go. But here's a location. They will be here, right? There's your Dead Sea. There's the Sea of Galilee. And then this will be the Jordan. So they're right there. Going to be on this side of the Jordan. So remember, the said Canaanites were on the other side of Jordan, but these ones are on this side of Jordan. So very important. That'll be like close to Syria and Damascus and things like that. So very important to get a little understanding and everything. And we also start to get an introduction in the E group, a T group. T groups start popping into the E groups at this time, at the Gasulian time frame. We'll start getting T groups popping in with them. But the reason why I wanted to show you this is because let's go back over here. How is it connected? That's why I was showing you this little video. This little video, let me just continue on with it just to show you its little connection real fast. Let me go to this part so you can hear this.
Media.
So remember, it connected South America, the Levant, and it connected. It's going to connect Syria, and it's going to connect certain cultures. Watch what it says here.
Spanovingia at Politecnico di Torino in Italy believes that the Middle Eastern stone structures should be thought as geoglyphs in the same way as the Nazca lines are. She also thinks it's possible that the function of the wheels may have been similar to the mysterious drawings in the Nazca Desert. She commented, "If we define a geoglyph as a white sign on the ground of artificial origin, the stone circles are geoglyphs. If we consider more generally the stone circles as worship places of ancestors or places for rituals connected with astronomical events or with seasons, they could have the same function of the geoglyphs of South America, the Nazca lines for instance. The design is different, but the function could be the same." Dr. Gary Rolofson, a professor in the Department of Anthropology at Whitman College in Washington State, works on prehistoric sites in Jordan and has found hundreds of unusual basalt structures. The majority were found to be tombs and ritual buildings, but there are also structures with shapes that are extremely similar to the ones studied by Dr. Kennedy. Dr. Rolofson commented on the problem of identifying what they were. He said, "There are 3 wheels at Wizard Pools, one of the Jordan sites, which are really bizarre. I don't know what those things are, but the burials are made at the same time the wheels are. Really, we're just guessing. We don't know what they are, but they are elaborate." Some experts have suggested that the structures could have possibly been used in burial customs due to the presence of cairns, which are man-made piles of stones used as burial monuments in prehistory. However, most archaeologists object to this theory to explain all of these monuments as the presence of cairns on or near the structures is far from common. Many of the stone structures found in Saudi Arabia have been labeled gates by archaeologists because they resembled field gates from above.
Your mic music, brother.
That's why I'm glad you're here. I'm glad you're here. That's why I did that again.
All
right.
praises.
So you can see right here, migrations in the Levant region during the Chalcolithic also marked by distinct Y DNA. So distinct Y DNA. It's going to be certain Y DNA that they find there. They find a distinct Y DNA in the Chalcolithic Levant and in this time frame. So very important. Jordan, different areas here. So there's going to be other lineages that are in these areas, but this is where you start to see the T group pop up. So you're going to see a T group pop up that's going to be in those areas. Also, it still lets us know the lineage that dominated that area was the E group. So it lets us know the E group. But we're going to also note that, remember, because a lot of people, when they think of the Levant and they think of certain breeds of lions, we got to be careful who we're connecting who to who, right? We're going to show later how the Hamites move with the Philistines and things like that. To get a little understanding of the A groups that moved with some of the North Sea peoples. But this is going to be the people in the Levant. This is going to be the Gasulians. So you see the T group there. See the mtDNA. You can see what mtDNA they had. They all mixed. They all going to be mixing with these females. But you'll see that they have E1B1B and they're going to have T groups. So that's very important. That's going to be your Gasulians. They are a group that came together. If you know, a lot of Somalis are E1B1B and T because they move together fairly a lot. They're going to have connections to basically, you can see right here, these areas and whatnot. and then go into some of these areas. So they're going to be technically in connection to your ancient North Arabians, pretty much. They're going to be in connection to these areas, and they're going to go down. Long story short, is that they're going to have connections to a lot of these areas. So very important. Go back over here. And the reason why I'm showing you that is because, let me just show you something here. Right here. So here's something from academia. It says, unveiling hidden rituals of Gasulians and whatnot, and what was going on right in South Levant, pretty much. Just talk about their rituals and everything. Now, the reason why it is important is because if we just note the symbols, right? If we just note the symbols of the Gasulians, they have a lot of strange symbols and everything, but they did work with metal. They're not Israelites. That means the T and E1B1B are not Israelites. That's what that means. That means since they're in the Levant dwelling there, they can't be Israelites because it said that there was not a smith in Israel, so they could not work with metal. But these ones were working with metal a lot, and not just that, they're connected to this ancient culture. So, and some of their culture practices are still going on in certain places and everything. But let me close this and go right here. So you see this little image here, this little design. I may not have pointed this out, but this little video was talking about that design, about that way, the way that design is, the way that spoke is, and it talks about that design basically looks like this. Here, I'll let it play a little bit.
A recent analysis of the group of wheels in Jordan's Azraq oasis discovered that their spokes are oriented in a southeast-northwest direction, pointing to where the sun rises during the winter solstice. Whether this
So a little understanding, and this also talks about the Gasulians. This actually talks about connection of the Gasulians and everything, and basically how their things that they had spread out. So you can see that little design there. We'll talk about that in a little bit as well as we continue. So get a little more into it. So right here, you can see some little information. I'm gonna go over this real fast. So this is gonna be a little read. It just talks about basically people of the Levant, pretty much. Let me just go down a little bit, and I guess let's see here. So this is a I always put like extra meat there to get a little understanding on some different things. This one just goes over some of their cultures and different cultures there and whatnot. I'm just gonna go down. So this right here is just like a little summary of some of the stuff they had. But let me see if I can go to it real fast on here. If this is the one. In fact, no, it's not. This is after this. So, but I just put this here as something to see for this information in connection to this. But that's what it was talking about. It was just talking about on there. It reads the genesis of the textual industry, right? Just talking about basically those people because they had different weird practice and everything. And it just talks about the things that were basically happening. They were basically making stuff, basically. They had a lot of techniques and everything in the ancient Near East, from the Natufian time frame to the Gasulian time frame. Long story short, that's what it's talking about there. So it's a little piece, and it's basically connecting the pre-pottery Neolithic B, because that's where the T meets the E group in the pre-pottery Neolithic B, and they meet each other in this area, and they basically hang out in the area of the Levant, and they're going to be the Gasulians, and they become the Gasulians, and this culture that basically is metal workers and everything that had settled in these little areas and whatnot, and that will be their basically their homeland. All right, just talks a little bit about that and everything, but go down a little bit. So just to get a little connection, that E was in the Levant for a long time. It was in the Levant for a long time. So although not specifically discussing Sumerians, right? Now we're going to start linking the Natufian to the like Anatolia and Mesopotamia and things like that. Although not discussing the Sumerians, right? In 2012 suggests that partial, they say, North African origin for some pre-Semitic cultures of the Middle East, basically the Natufians. After testing the genomes of Natufian and pre-pottery Neolithic culture barriers. Now, they would say pre-Shemitic on here, but remember this is going to be basically a quote from Wiki or Wikiland right here. But if you get a read of the linguistics of it all, right, this is Sumer. They'll say like this is the lands of Abraham and whatnot. So there's a little understanding. Basically, just to get a little understanding, is that if you look at the linguistics of the Natufian, they are actually going to be Shemitic in nature. Linguistics will tell you this. But let's keep on keeping on so that we can see these genetics. Now, watch what this little paper is going to say here. This is actually, I'm going to open this up. This is just a little, when they get their little finds, they like to give a little 2 cent. And I'm going to give you the genetic studies for this little find. This was 2001. I'm going to show you what they say in 2001, what they had said about some interesting finds. The reason apparently lies in origins. Levantines have more ancestry than Arabians from Europe and Anatolia. The Arabians have more ancestry than Levantines from Africa. So they'll say the people who are the Arabians are genetically related said to Africans. But remember, we're noting roots. What you see today is because of migration. So it's very important that the people of the E group are not actually Africans. They're actually going to be native Arabians, but they do make a large portion in Africa. Who didn't mix? Go ahead.
No, you go ahead and finish.
Yep. Who didn't mix with Neanderthals. So remember how it said there how a lot of Africans, they didn't mix with Neanderthals. So the Tufians didn't really mix with Neanderthals, but they did get some of the female lineages, the European female lineages. And it says who didn't mix with Neanderthals, and from the Tufians who were the prehistoric inhabitants of Levant, including Israel. So prehistoric, the oldest individuals in the Levant, including Israel. So remember, the Syrians came from Ker, which Ker is in Moab. So very important. I'm gonna read this last part. I'm gonna let you speak, Will. Also, present day Africans are believed to have contributions from Neanderthals. After all, they'll say a very small one, right? Conferred by early humans who basically, tracked in reverse from Europe back to Africa. So you see that after mixing with Neanderthals. So remember, we confirmed that Neanderthals were there, said 30,000 years ago. So if this African lineage got Neanderthal mixture, then it had to meet them earlier than 30,000 years ago, said 30,000 years ago. It says, anyway, the Arabians of today apparently didn't arise from early Levant farmers, right? The Arabians today didn't arise from early Levant farmers, but from the Tufian hunter-gatherers who preceded those farmers and said Africans. The study shows. Nor do the findings support the theory that Levantan farmers later replaced the indigenous Arabian, and remember, it lets us know that who are the Arabians. It says that the Arabians today, the replaced Arabians in the land of the Levant, are actually from the Gog Turks. The Arabians today were not the original Arabians of the early Levant farmers, but they are the Natufians, the earlier ones in that land. So the earliest inhabitants, the indigenous Arabian populations, are said from their study, the people who migrated to Africa, who dominate Africa today. But go ahead, Will, you can say something.
Yes, I was just going to point out why this article is so beautiful, because it gives you three key pointers. All right, go back real quick. Notes you just had. Just look at the bottom notes you just had. It tells us that Arabians did not arise from those early Levantine farmers, right? And if you look at the burials of those early Levantine farmers and quote-unquote Canaanites, we will see that they were Caucasus and Iranian migrants, J. All right. Now, the second point makes is that but they send from the Tufian hunter-gatherers. We know that the Tufians were the proto-Semites, blah, blah. E1B1, E1B1B. Now, this is where they try to eliminate us from that Middle Eastern population by saying, and from African.
That
African
throw you off.
So what you say, brother?
That's what they be trying to throw it off, because we know if they say Natufian, there's no reason to say African, because we don't have any older E's than the Natufian. In fact, there's a paper that says that the Natufian don't go lower than Sinai. The Natufian go upwards before they go downwards. They don't even go into Africa until later.
Exactly. And like we were saying, we know that African component within Arabs actually is haplogroup E1B1A. A lot of Arabs, a lot of people in Saudi Arabia, in Oman, all down throughout the Red Sea coast that would contribute to these Arabians have EM2. So actually, they are just saying that they are E1B1 haplotypes. No, descent from the two E1B1A, E1B1B.
Facts. Let's keep on. Let's continue today. So right here, I'm gonna open up another one. Here's just a little highlight from something that's gonna lead to something. What were the dates of Mesopotamia? Let's get a little understanding. Just gonna read a highlight. Timeline of ancient Mesopotamia, evolution from prehistory to the Persian conquest of the Chaldean Empire. So just talk about some things, 2000 BC and whatnot. This is the era of the Natufian culture, which extended from the Euphrates to Egypt. So the Natufian culture extended from the Euphrates. Where did some of the Shemites come from? So it's let you know that it came from Euphrates to Egypt. The Neolithic begins to show itself in Mesopotamia with the first evidence of agriculture and livestock. So are they actually hunter-gatherers if they have agricultural and livestock? Hunter-gatherer means that they hunt and gather. But if they have agricultural things and livestock, then they have their people that actually more pastoralists. They're more around their area, around what was around them and everything. But they wouldn't necessarily be called in a sense only pastoralists because they have other things going on. But they did have animals that they herd to themselves, that they took care of themselves in their environment. Another idea, basically, the idea suggests that the emergence of middle and late pre-pottery Neolithic megasites in the Jordan highlands stemmed from migrations from Mesopotamian heartlands to the western edge of the Jordan Rift Valley. So very important. Get a little bit on that. So this is what you just saw here on that upper one. They were talking about this study from Cell. They were talking about this little one up here is going to be talking about a study that I'm going to show you right here from Cell. But first, I'm going to show you this from this paper. Just talking about basically multi isol type top evidence of populations basically of Natufians and their migration during early Neolithic and southern Levant. So get a little understanding of their migration, everything. Close this. Go over here, read the little highlight. Just talks about what we just talked about, human migration and population, right, of these individuals that were moving around. Basically could have played an important role in the development of these sedentary villages, right? Sedentary, right? Even just calling it sedentary, right? If they were hunter and gatherers, they would make different locations and places that they would go to. But sedentary means they settled, right? Idea suggests that the emergence of middle late pre-pottery Neolithic megasites and everything, we just talked about that in Rift Valley and everything. On what it's talk about there. But this is just talking about, let me open this up. This is basically talking about the migrations of the Natufian, and that's why we was looking at the Gasulians, because the Natufian end up also becoming part with the Gasulians. So we'll talk about that as well. Continuing on. All right. Arabian populations, in contrast, have higher Natufian-like ancestry. So this is going to be a very important piece of information to understand. This part actually goes with what this is saying right here. This person right here is actually talking about what I'm going to read now. So this person in 2021, they're actually going to be talking about what I'm going to read. So this is actually where they're going to be talking about the Arabians and everything. So they talk about some of the people in the Levant and everything, and they're going to talk about the Arabians. So they talk about the Arabians today and everything. They talk about the population. and everything. I'm just gonna read a quote that they say real fast. So right here, they just talk about some things. Human migration of this population. Let me go down because I went up a little bit. All right, Arabian population, in contrast, have higher Natufian-like ancestry because E1B1B. Arabians are E1B1B. This is what a geneticist said. That's what this quote was from a geneticist from that page. But I'll show you what the geneticists exactly say, just to show that that's from that page, because I don't know why I put it up there, but for the sake of the live, I want you to see that this is right off of their quote, and I'm gonna show you what the geneticist says themselves. I'm gonna show you what this person says. So right here, right, they say that this geneticist, a geneticist said, right, this geneticist is gonna note and say some things. Just talk about some things. He says the clustering patterns we find reflect the historical ancestors present in modern day populations. So these are gonna be everyone today. That's what they're looking at. The Natufian are people today in the Levant and basically Iraqi Arabs. All populations we tested have higher Anatolian-like ancestry, which is much rarer in Arabia. So it's just letting you know that modern people today are more closer to people of Anatolia and upwards, which is more rare than ancient Arabia. It says Arabian populations, in contrast, have higher Natufian-like ancestry. So you see, well, when we talk about who are the Arabians and everything and whatnot. Now that's going to be a quote from the person reviewing these things. Now we can get a quote from the geneticist themselves. Get a little understanding. I don't know why these notes do that sometimes. All right, there we go. All right, I'm glad I had to do that little thing again. All right, so now let's go down and get a little understanding from the geneticist himself or themselves. So that said, this person. I don't know what's going on there. Let that load up. I'm going to just read it. Our results do not support, this is what the geneticists say, our results do not support a complete replacement of the Arabian population by Levantan farmers. That's very important because when you think the J group that came down there, they know that actually is a group that came from basically the Caucasus Zagros that came a little later. That's very important. And we'll talk about that on here. I'll make sure this thing goes, maybe. Refresh it real fast. Hopefully I don't have to open all these little notes again and just leave this thing. Yeah, but we're bringing out some very deep stuff, so I'm pretty sure by now, the world who's trying to program the world to a certain design, we are not on their side that they like. We are not a group that they like because we're bringing you nothing but the truth. Nothing but the truth. Not some fairy tale story that, hey, they started here, but no evidence we have to show you. But I have evidence to show you. You see, our results do not support a complete replacement of the Arabian population by Levantan farmers. In addition, our model suggests that Arabians could have derived their ancestry from Natufian-like hunter-gatherer populations instead of Levantan farmers. You see what I'm saying there? So it's letting you know that Arabians will be different than the ones that came in later. Again, going on the Levantan Neolithic, when we substitute Levantan in or Neolithic with Natufian as source of ancestry in the Middle East, we found that Arabians could be successfully modeled. So he's saying that basically, if you put Natufian, the movement of Natufians, you can easily model a table for the Arabians by the Natufians, whereas none of the present day Levantans could be modeled as such. So that means the people in Levant today are not the original ones in Levant. That's very important, right? We already talked about this paper. This is the one that they found 39,000 or said 39,000 year old E1B1B, right? And obviously understand when I'm saying this that there is no genetic group that you could say only started, just about 6,000 years ago. But that's based upon the way that they're trying to scale these things. But we know that scale is exaggerated. There's a lot of ways to show that that scale is exaggerated. But here we talked about this before, where it says the haplogroup common in Natufian E1B1B is also frequent in our database, with most lineages correlating 8,000, 9,000 KYA. Though we also find a rare, deep, basically Y chromosome that's said 39,000 years ago. That's why we know the Natufian, the ones in Mesopotamia, are the ones. This is actually the origin. This is what they're talking about. That's the origin, and they know that the oldest one, actually is the one that makes other E groups, all these other E groups. So if we have an E1B1 there, E1B1B, we'll obviously have an E1B1 there, because E1B1P2 makes E1B1B. So that's going to be actually a Mesopotamia. So that find is actually a Mesopotamian connecting downwards, going into the Levant, settle in the Levant for a long time in Kur and areas of Jordan. And later on, they go back up to Syria. They go up to Syria and settle in some different places. So we're going to talk about some of that. Northwest Syria and the Natufians. What's going on there? So very important. Get a little understanding here just to show you this. So Natufians in the north, the late Epiphytic, probably said that weird, culture entity at this cave in northwest Syria. So I'll talk a little bit of information of these individuals in Syria now. So get a little understanding. So where is that? Right here. So they say the Natufian, they found a Natufian here in the north. All right. So that's where they found some of the Natufian in the north. Get a little understanding of that. Let's go down a little bit. Matter of fact, let's go over here. I already got the screenshot. So we'll go down a little more. So Natufians, I believe, to be the ones that had migrated into the Levant, settled there, and became the Syrians and obviously the Arabians. So the paper discussed the relationship between the late Epiphytic evidence recovered in this cave, in northwest Syria, and the Natufians and everything. Just talk about that culture, said late 15,000, 14,000 millennia, whatnot, 14,000 years ago, or it's said, right? Understand when I'm saying these things. And then the rest is a little other language, but let me go down, because that's all we really need to understand, is that it has connections with the north. So with all that said, what I'm concluding here is, for the first part of the Amos saying, right? For the first part of this, I'm saying that for this part, the Syrian and Kur, the Syrian of Kur is an area of Moab, and I'm telling you that E1B1B went north to Syria. That went upwards to Syria. And that's why you see this like this, that this E1B1B actually went upwards to Syria right here. So right here. So E1B1B would have been right here. So E1B1B. So very important. So we have seen, and we noted that, that's what we noted, is that the E group was all in these different areas, and it was in this area of Syria. So very important. I'm trying to make it where it's not so big, but that should be fine. All right. So notice that. So the E group, it would have went here, 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 and here. And all these are also connected with historical documents. The E1B1B that we had recorded going into Punt, going downwards into here. Obviously, remember Ishmael and other E1B1Bs or other Arabians were in Egypt. Remember, they had sold Joseph, right? And we see Midianites fight with Moses and all that, but Midianites were also in Egypt. And we also had the writings of Flavius Josephus, book 1, chapter 15, that says that E1B1B took Libya, right? They took Libya and they settled in Libya. They took Libya, which was from the Hamites' land, but they took the Hamites' land, they settled there. And they go into the lands of Syria, and they came from Mesopotamia, and they go into the north, because also from Flavius Josephus, book 1, chapter 15, it'll tell you that the Midianites also had linked with the Greeks. That's very important. And E1B1B ends up moving throughout these lands, ends up moving out throughout the south, the north of those areas. I believe E1B1B to be the Syrians. Let's go on to the next one. Let's find out who are the Philistines, who are also the ones who are the Philistines. So I'm going to show you a study. There's going to be a little interesting study. It just talks about a chambers of individuals. They found a child between the age of 10, a woman in her mid 30s, and a man between the age of 40 and 60. Right? They were rich. This is going to be a royal family. They were rich. They were adorned with gold, silver jewelry, including rings. All right, lots of things, bracelets and pins and things like that. The male body was discovered wearing a gold necklace and had been crowned with a gold diadem, right? And all of the objects, right, basically demonstrated a high level of skill in archery, right? He also had a bow and whatnot, a couple different things. Right here, we're going to look at basically the ancient DNA results could for the first time reveal whether the common inhabitants of Canaan, of the Canaanite city state, were the same background as the elite. So it lets you know if we can find the elites of, because that's what we can find. We can actually find the elites in the land of Canaan and note their genetics. Now, if you had already did a little history on who are the Phoenicians and the Canaanites and things like that, who had settled in these little areas, what you will quickly find out is that it's highly known that supposedly there was a Indo-European dominance in the land of Canaan. Now, if someone was familiar with the biblical narrative on who is a Ham, Shem, and Japheth, you will come to the conclusion that basically CF cannot be the Hamites. So why would we have a larger CF group in the lands of Canaan? That's what we're going to look at today. That we're going to actually know that a people called the Hurrians are going to have connections to the lands of the Canaanites. Just to get a little understanding, scholars have long held the belief that Hurrians were revolving mountain people who immigrated in the region sometime between note the year, 4th to 3rd millennium BC. So that's like 4,000, right? 3,000. But we can find that it's going to be a long time ago. So they're going to be people going into the lands of the Levant who are connected to the Hurrians. And the Hurrians will be a Indo-European group and eventually settled down and adapted cuneiform as a script. New excavations of Hurrian cities, however, have revealed basically, some understanding of these things and whatnot, of the Near East and whatnot. Basically, they talk about the finds of Megiddo and the genetic finds that they find there. So we're gonna bring out some of those things and talk about what they found there and what was the cause of this and what was the results of these things. So we're gonna be looking at what's going on there. Close this. So get a little understanding. Following the conquest of Tutmosis. So this is where we're going to start connecting, because few people notice, but Egypt is going to be in connection with Crete and with Canaan. We're going to look at that and we're going to connect it. Reveals that the king of Megiddo at the time did not have a Semitic, right, traditionally Canaanite name. So he's letting you know that during the time of Tutmosis III, that was a recording of the people in the lands of Canaan not being not speaking Semitic languages, but rather a Hurrian name, right? I don't know how you say that, but Yardi. Scholars have long held the belief that the Hurrians were moving, basically when we talked about that, mounted people in the 4th and 3rd millennium and eventually settled down and adapted cuneiform script, right? So now we're going to get into the Philistines. So now we got to open up another note to get into the Philistines. So we was talking about JP58 and its connection with the Philistines, but it's not just JP58 that's connected with the Philistines. It's many different groups of the CF group. And we'll talk about that. That's why we put down IJK, because they're going to be connected to that. They're all one family, but they do, for example, the Philistines, the Pelased and different groups, the Sea Peoples, there's like 9 groups of them, multiple different groups that came down. That's why you'll see like multiple different genetics that will be in that area. But let me go down and point this out now. down here, and make sure everything's good there. And Will, I don't know if you all had anything to add to that.
Oh no, brother. You are. Oh, are you talking about the Philistines? Right?
Oh, anyone
What are
of
sea
them.
people? What are sea peoples?
Yeah, you matter of fact, yeah, let's do a light reminder on the sea peoples if we could. So right here, I'll show this real fast. When I was talking about the Canaanite, the sea peoples and everything, it says I'm gonna bring up this little study here. This little genetic study. I don't know why. Make sure this is it. Yep, right here. So it just talks about 3000 BC, the Canaanites and everything that were going to be settled in those area. They found 73 individuals. It's going to be in a study, a cell study. I'm going to close this because that one doesn't have it. But the strength of the migration from the northeast of the ancient Near East and the fact that this migration continued for many centuries may help to explain why rulers of city states in Canaan in the late Bronze Age carried non-Semitic, right, Hurrian names. Says basically this individual of the Hebrew University of Jerusalem. It says there were strong and active connections between these regions through movements of people that help to understand the shared elements of culture. You can see what's going on. So
Also something very interesting that tied to those cultures was that within those burials they also found certain material cultures like pots with rings that's used up in the Caucasus area, just showing that they was the migration of material culture with the people from the Caucasus to the Levant.
That's right. That's right. There was red pottery that not just the genetics, not just the linguistics, but also the pottery shows a migration, that the pottery from the Hurrians, from the Caucasus, came downwards into the Levant and settled in the area of the Canaanites. And that's what we're going to connect to with that's why it says that the Philistines came from Captor, and we're going to connect that with Crete. We're going to connect that with the movements of the north country and everything. So that's right. The pottery is important too. So right here, the study in cell also shows that migrations from the distant Caucasus Mountains combined with the indigenous population to forge the unique Canaanite culture. So the unique Canaanite culture, because a lot of times people just cop out and say E because they must have been there a long time, but they don't know that Canaan. Even the Bible tells us the Canaanites weren't originally in the lands of Canaan, but the Canaanites came down during the 4000 said in the genetic finds and other finds that they came down about 4000 3000 BC from a certain group. Just lets us know unique culture that dominated the area between Egypt and Mesopotamia during the Bronze Age. So J came down only during the Bronze Age. Very important. Lasting from approximately 35 BC until 1200 BC. The team extracted ancient DNA from bones of 73 individuals, right, buried in basically those cities and whatnot, the Canaanites. When they say who were the Canaanites, modern, right, this is a common study. They say DNA from biblical Canaanites lives on in modern Arabs and Jews. So very important, modern Arabs and Jews are actually the replaced people. They're not the original people. That's very important. They're not the ancient people. They are going to be different people, more of a people that came from the north. Very important, not from the south. Lights did. That's what that reading also talks about. We're going to talk about that too. That Israelites, as it says, are you not the Ethiopians? As the Ethiopians to me, did I not bring Israel out of Egypt, Africa? We'll talk about that as well. But individuals from all sites are highly genetically similar. Very important because we're going to connect them to the CF groups. To why are they genetically similar? Very important. Go down. I'm just gonna skip that real fast. Here's the this is gonna be from cell. I'm just gonna show you basically what's there. What did we find? What genetics did we find? We had talked about this before. These areas will be ancient areas, as you can see. You see these dates here. These are going to be ancient areas of Canaan. These are going to be old areas of Canaan, of the Canaanite lands. We can break down each and every one of these names. All these places are Canaanite places. All these names are Canaanite places. And what you'll see there is you'll see a mix of J groups, which we can show. We can go over a paper and talk about how J. In fact, let's go over right now just to confirm that this J group came downwards, but it had a high portion in the upper coast. In fact, J's roots are in the Caucasus going up to Finland. That's the earliest J's. There's no earlier J than that. The earliest J's go from the Caucasus to Finland. That's very important. And then they rain down. But here's an understanding here that J wasn't in the Levant until later. That means they can't be the Arabians because they wasn't in the Levant for a long time. And remember, these dates are exaggerated. So you got to understand that when we're talking Paleolithic, Mesolithic, Neolithic, all that, if you understand it to the biblical time frame, it's basically letting you know that, for example, there's ways that you can actually break this down in a chart. That's certain geneticists like Dr. Nathan Jensen that breaks it down, understand the mutation rate and things like that. But understanding that what I'm showing you here is showing you the migration, where they actually came from, the area that will be the main area of these individuals. But let me go down and show you this thing. So what we just confirmed, okay, there we go. What we just confirmed, remember we was talking about the Natufian and the E1B1B individuals, and we was talking about how the E1B1B settled in Syria, because if you note their migration, they go up north, right? So you can see these arrows. The Natufians go up north, so they go northwards. A lot of times they're actually related to the Akkadian culture and stuff like that. But Akkadians later were taken down by a different people, by another people that came there. But let me go to something here and show what I'm talking about when I talk about this J group. So it talks about where did J come from, haplogroup J, P58. Just let you know that it came from the Zagros Mountains and things like that, as other places in connection with the Caucasus. But right here, you can see that haplogroup J was absent in all Natufian and Neolithic Levant male individuals examined thus far, but emerged during the Bronze Age in Lebanon and Jordan, along with ancestry related to the Iran Chalcolithic. So it lets us know about those Sidon BA males. The royalty of the Sidon BA matches. All 5 Sidon BA individuals had different female mtDNA, right? But they had the same Y DNAs in majority. Go back over here. That's just for a mental note to understand why we're seeing these J's there, because this J1A2B, I did a whole live on JP58. J1A2B is JP58. So J1A2B is JP58 with some J's there. And you see these female lineages right here. You can see many different types of female lineages. Remember how I said they went with Hamites? Remember how I showed you how the A group had an L lineage? This is a certain L lineage, is L0. This was one of the L lineages that moved with the A lineages early, some of the Hamitic lineages early. And I'm gonna show you that this lineage moved from Crete with the A lineage. I'm gonna show you that they was together in Crete. They also had other lineages there, other European lineages like T and R and things like that, because IJK makes all these lineages, but E lineages stayed in the Levant still. So you can see the Arabian E1B1B that's gonna be there. It's gonna be very important to note that was there as well. So very important. We'll go down. Let's get a little understanding. So that's what we were talking about. We got to understand that this will be before the time of the Israelites coming out of the wilderness. So they spent some time in the wilderness after spending 300 years in Africa. So very important. So this is just a little breakdown of some things. I'm going to go down. Remember we were talking about that one in Megiddo, right? This talks about Megiddo and everything, the ancient Canaanites in the land of Megiddo and everything. Very important. Basically, in connections with Revelation, what it actually is going to be your JP58. That the ancient JP58 that was basically found in the upper areas. So very important. Let's go down a little bit, and this is just breaking down some of those names on what were those locations. Long story short, they're Canaanite cities. But going down, just gotta go to this other piece I want to show here. See, where is that? Down here. This just talk about where they came from the Zagros and the Caucasus. That's who the Canaanites are, individuals that came downwards from the Zagros and the Caucasus Mountain. So that's also understanding Phoenicians. The Philistines, Phoenicians are all genetically the same. There's a little understanding. And also we know that they came from the north because that's where their pigs actually came from as well. A lot of people don't talk about this, but the Canaanites had a lot of pigs. Here's a little something from nature. We observed the transfer of pigs between Greece and Anatolia at least as early as the 3rd millennia BC by detecting the Near Eastern haplogroup. This is just a haplogroup of the pig, Y1, in Greece in the early, basically, period from this time frame. We talk about the movement of the Philistines, or the in a sense who are called the Canaanites, 3000 to 2000 BC, right? Continuing throughout the period, we are aware that the YA may have been local in Greece much earlier than the third millennium, because animals, God puts the life in the blood. Animals also have haplogroups. That's really interesting too. That an animal can be different than another animal. Like you can have one pig that's different than another pig, right? Not all pigs are the same when it comes to the blood. The 3rd millennium BC and may present descendants of pigs brought from the Near East during the Neolithic period. So very important. Transferring of animals in throughout the area. Indeed, they're basically the movement goes together with basically in migration by boat. So it lets you know that because the Phoenicians were also seafaring people. So it's letting you know that the animals were being moved by boat. The animals were being moved throughout these areas by boat. So that's just something also to note. So right there, just let you know that they were reproduced rapidly and thus make it easier to quickly um, establish herds and produce much meat. A good example is provided by Anglo-Saxon sites in Britain, which show a large percent of pig remains at the beginning of the settlement process. That's like 5th century BC. It says once the community was established, cattle and sheep consumption increased at the expense of pigs. It seems, therefore, that at least some groups of sea people came to the southern Levant aiming to establish settlements. So that's going to be right here. So connecting the sea people with those pigs in a migration, that's how we know that those J groups are not going to be Israelites. Those J groups, one, linguistically, they're not Israelites. They work with metal, they're not Israelites. They have pigs, they're not Israelites. Um, that's just important to know. Migration. So just a little information. Their Eastern Mediterranean mobility in the Bronze Age and early Iron Age, basically cattle and pigs. So now let's get into the little genetics of these individuals and everything. This is going to be the Gasulians. I already went a little bit into Gasulians. I didn't really go that deep into it. I'm going to do a separate live concentrated on other Gasulians, but I just want to give you a little bit of that information real fast. So the J group is not Israelites. Um, they are the modern people in Israel today, but those are not Israelites. Those would be the sea peoples that came down from Sidon. So very important to understand that. Very important. So who are the these individuals? Let me close this one. Who are the Philistines? Who are the Philistines? They're going to be from Captor. Have we connected Captor yet? Let's connect it. Let's connect Captor, because now we're going to connect Captor. We got to look at the fossils that actually go into Egypt. Why is that? I'm going to show you why. Because Captor has connection to the real Hamites. Crete, the Cretans. Paleolithic Y haplogroup heritage dominates or predominates in a Cretan highland areas, pretty much. Plateau. You can see right here, notice we're gonna see an A group here. These are gonna be your real Hamites. This is gonna be where your Philistines came from. So there's gonna be Cretan, the Cretes. So remember, this where is it? This word right here, right here, the Philistines from Captor. Captor is Crete. Captor, if you do a little study on it, Captor probably the name of Crete. In fact, people know that that's actually in connection with Crete because there's many other scriptures that connect it, and we can know that that's where the Philistines came from, a sea coast, a coastland, and everything from Crete. So it's actually a northern land. Crete. Let me actually show it on a map. We already did. I did a live on it that the Romans also came from that area as well. That they also came from that area. That's basically this area. So here to here. They say here in connection to here, because they'll say that they came from here, but it's in connection with here going over here. So that's what we're going to be connecting today. This and we noticed that we found in that group. I'm going to close this because we don't need that one. Well, I probably should have left it. I'll leave it open. I'll add it later because I gotta make sure I add these notes to the description because all we talk is sources. We don't talk nothing else but sources. But let me show you this A group that went into it moved. So this A group, you see what's there. Now also there's gonna be with them on that island DE, but that's gonna be another story of its own. Very important. Go down a little bit. Paleo. This is gonna be early time. But notice you got your I's, your J's, your P's. P makes your R's and things like that. This is why you got your R1A, things like that in the area. G's in that area. And you can see right here, you can see where the black is. It'll show you where they were. So you can see all the way to the area where you have they said the Philistines came from over here. So Hamites were there and they moved over here. Hamites were in the Levant. Hamites are in the Levant. Hamites over here and Hamites in Africa because remember Mizraim, Egypt. So we're gonna have Hamites in these lands. Not large portion because what does Scripture say? It talks about how Ham would be basically not a strong power in the time.
It would be a servant. And
That's right.
Also, this is a good source.
This is a good,
And,
yeah. I'm gonna hook you up with it. So this is the real deal. Yeah.
Like you was saying, why the amounts are so small is because, like you was saying, we was talking about those invasions from Anatolia and the Caucasus. They basically changed the rhythm of Hamites out, but we still see a small influence of them in these locations today.
That's right. Absolutely. And that's why we have to look at these things carefully, know origins, and not just say, oh, because someone is black, they must be Hamites or something like that. You know what I'm saying? But these individuals who I'm showing you, the Phoenicians, because we're still talking to Phoenicians, the Phoenicians are going to be individuals who migrated with the Hamites. And that's what you're going to note on this thing. We're going to note migration of the Hamites going from this area, from the Crete to different areas. But here's a little understanding. The Minoans, why am I showing you this? Because they were also called, for some reason, they were called Minoans on this thing. They were called a group of individuals that had settled an area. But let me show you this real fast from this book, this Nature. Paleolithic white haplogroup heritage predominant in the Cretan highland plateau and everything. We just talk about that and these different groups and whatnot in the areas of Crete. But going down, so you can see right here, this little area. So that's where they say the Cretan. That's where they say the sea peoples came from, right? And you can see where they talk about the study and everything, certain haplogroups that were found and everything, and you can see what's going on there. This one, let me go back. So that area is supposedly where the Minoans were. So the Minoans supposedly was a mixed people. And we also know that there were Hamites with the Minoans because there's a Minoan piece of art called Captain of the Blacks. Captain of the Blacks. And I'm gonna put mid. Probably put out weird Minoan culture. So under a Minoan finding is that they had basically black people. And a lot of times you'll see people say, oh, because the Minoans, that red is just a practice that the Egyptians were doing. There were no black, dark people. But really, if you've seen the Captain of the Blacks, they did find that Minoans also painted portraits of black people or people that were said dark. So that's just something that's important, that there were darker people in the area of the Minoans in their area. So that's something that's also fairly important to know about that. So that's a real artifact. But let me go back over here. Let me move this right here so we can look at that. So this is going to be some information. So a European population in Minoan Bronze Age Crete. So let us know about European population in basically Crete when 4,000 to 3,000 years before present. So you can see where it's talk about there. They talk about basically the mtDNA that was there and whatnot. You can see what it's going to be talking about here and everything. I'm just going to go to something on here. I think I already have a little thing on it. It's just basically evidence of A and B in the northern areas, but it shrank over time. A and B basically shrank over time throughout the time frame. But I'm gonna click something here. But first, let me read a highlight because I did make a highlight or a screenshot. Such findings are in support of the idea of a toponymous, or basically a homeland origin of the Minoan civilization by the descents of the Neolithic settlers of the island, as it has been proposed for the other Neolithic European populations. The most likely origin of the Cretan Neolithic settlers was Anatolia, right? Remember we was talking about that. That some people from the area of the Middle East came from Anatolia and the Middle East. Given that the timing of the first Neolithic inhabitants to reach Crete 9,000 years before present coincides with the migration of Neolithic farmers out of Anatolia, it is highly probable that the same ancestral populations that's spread to Europe also spread to Crete and contributed to, because remember we noticed that A00 or the A group moving around and different things like that, and contributed to the founding of the early Minoan civilization. It has been suggested that in the addition to agricultural methods, the Anatolian farmers also brought with them the Indo-European language. So it's letting us know that in that area, the Indo-European language is also moving there as well. The current, yeah, the current prevailing idea is that the Minoan language was unrelated to the Indo-European family. So they thought it was like unrelated. Alternatively, as suggested by this one, Proto-Minoans was one of the branch derived from the Proto-Indo-European language about 9,000 years ago. To let you know a major connection with those groups and everything. And that's where we're going to note the movements of groups like one of the classic Indo-European groups we know is R, right? We know that that one had moved throughout that area and everything, and it's something that we can note. But let me click this and go to, I think it's something here I wanted to see. So right here, what do you see here is A group. So you can see right here, these are actually different groups. You'll see your G group. You'll see and this is all about the Minoan groups and whatnot. This is going to be your G group, your H group, your F group, your E group, which is like E1B1B. They went over there too, because remember we talked about E and D split there. D was there as well. C was there. B and A was there as well. So it was like I don't know why, but a lot of people went there. Don't know what's going on there, but a lot of people had went there. So you can see A groups will be there and B groups will be there. That'd be something that's also important to note. And go down. All right. So we're gonna connect them. We're gonna still connect them just to get a little understand, because we're gonna also note that they're going to go into the areas of Africa. We're going to note that they go into the areas of Africa. So very important to note this migration. So remember, looking at the early lands, you can see recent analysis of 9Y makers define these ones, right? So very important in these within these islands of Crete. So very important. Very, very important. Go down a little bit. Make sure I didn't read this one. I read this one. Go down. So now let's get a little understanding on one group that's commonly known as our lineage, and the reason why it's important. Our lineage is known as being Indo-European. The R lineage goes into places that you gotta note it carefully so that we don't make every lineage Israelite. Just because they go into the Levant doesn't mean they're Israelites. For example, the R lineage goes into Sumer, and then it goes into Egypt. We're gonna connect this area to this area. It's gonna have a connection here. But first, let's start with the R lineage. So there's gonna be a little reading here. Just gonna read something here. This is just gonna be talk about the R lineage in connection to the Sumerian Turks. So that's just like why saying Sumerian Turks, because they came the R group, which I looked into intensively. Right, I'm gonna go up here. They basically came from this way and here, and then they go over here. So they're gonna have connections from over here. Their roots are over here. The R group. We're gonna note that as well, but it's gonna be important for the information following. The R1b haplogroup is presumed to originate in South Siberia, right, Central Asia. So very important to understand. That's going to be where the R group originated. There were approximately 8,000 to 10,000 years of migration. Very important. Shuffling and regrouping since the original migration of R1b haplogroup of this R beans and their subclads. The Sumerians, they say, obviously belong to R1b haplogroups. Now, could they have? Yes. It's possible that the Sumerians were mixing with some of the other Japhanites that came down and settled over there, or like the Semitic Sumerians, and because Samaria was replaced by a later Indo-European culture that had settled there.
Right, it was set.
That's right. That's right. The Sumerians obviously belong to R1b haplogroups, and it actually says homeland. It says actually following. Let me make sure I'm not looking at it. Yeah, right here. The original Sumerian. Oh, right here. Following the emergence of Neolithic agricultural societies, resulting in permanent settlements and prolonged interactions and specializations throughout Central Asia, the original Sumerian homeland became one of the Arabians regroupings throughout this period of history. So, and we note that they came from here. It's about 12. You see, this 20,000 or more. From there, they moved over here, became the Umayyan culture 3,000 years ago. But they also went over here, settled up here. J groups also went over there. You can note that from there they go downwards, but they actually go this way first. They go through Greece. They go to Greece 9,000 years ago, and then they go this way and they settle in the Sumerians. But then they go into Africa. So they go into some areas of Africa and they'll settle in Africa. And I talked about this before. There were groups over here that went down here, went up here, and came back up. The E1B, the E groups did that too. That they came down here and went upwards. This R group also went down here through Egypt. We're going to note that. And remember, they're going to be the Indo-European group. They're going to have connections. And if you don't know what R1b is, let me just show this for the sake of understanding. You want to hear that music? I'll just turn it over. So here you can see a little bit idea of the migration. No one started in Africa. It lets you know that the R group actually started upwards, not in Africa. It came from over here. Isham. Isham is the oldest K group, and it predates people being in Africa. It was all the way over here. Very important. But this group is found in here, this R group, and it's found in here, and it's found over here in large portions. Mainly in a lot of people today, you'll see on this is Indo-European. So you can see this little idea: 90% of Irish people. You can see English people, 70%. You can see it in a large portion of a lot of people, Germans, a large portion. So this is would be considered a classic said Indo-European group. This is what you will see here in a sense of understanding that this group would be an ancient group that settled in the north. So if we look on the plot, so this person we talked about before, he has a paper called Reconstruction of Outer Africa Not Having Enough Proof. He also found that a lot of the R groups, everything that you see here is where R groups were found. He found out that a lot of the R groups also went into Africa, went into areas of Africa. So that's why it's important to note migration. And this is 4,000 years ago. This is all those people that you saw there, those Indo-European people, their haplogroup, this group is also found in Africa. This group is also found in Africa. So remember, going back to this map, if the E group was found here and here, and sometimes in Africa and over here, why are we making it only African? Is it because it's larger in Africa today and they look dark and there's a fake science of eugenics that all people who are dark skinned start in the same place? But the interesting thing is, if you study genetics, pigmentation, light skin is recent. Light skin changing is recent. In fact, a lot of these groups used to be darker skin. So this group going into Africa, into these areas, has settled in these areas over here, right? You can see, and let's read a little bit about it. This map, in fact, is BC time. It says the map of R1b haplotypes locations considered in this study until they arrived in basically Iberia, which is Spain, 4,800 years before present. And just let you know about this group that we was talking about, the Arabians and things like that. Just talks about their movements. They settle in Levant, they settle in Iraq, but we got to note where they came from, right? It's very important. But it lets us know the map shows R1b locations previous to arrival to the Pyrenees, 4,000 years before present, from where they moved north as bell beakers and populated Europe between 4,000 3,000 years before present. So it's saying before they even got into Europe, right? Remember how I was showing you that this migration, they didn't just go from here to here, but rather they went here downwards up here and then up here. It's actually known. Is that, yep? Go ahead.
Nah, that's just surprising. Go ahead.
Isn't that? And so they went over here, and they went to this limit, right here, and there was a different people over here, but they went to this limit right here 9,000 years ago, and they went downwards through Sumer, through the Levant, through Egypt, through this here, and we're gonna connect it with Egypt, and they go upwards through Spain and settle in these areas. So that's important. And guess what? E group basically does the same thing, except they don't come all the way. They actually, DE starts over here. DE, we actually know. Let me actually show it for the sake of the live. That we know that DE's oldest find is actually, and I'll put a video in the description of E when we did a study on E1, the E1 groups and everything. E1A and E2. And I talked about how DE's actual origin is in basically Siberia. I don't know where, when they got off of Mount Ararat, they stayed in the north, and because remember, Nimrod called them down to Sinai, right? And Nimrod is a son of a son. So Nimrod ended up calling them down to Sinai. So they must have stayed up for a long time and then came downwards. But here's a little bit on the D group. This right here. This just talks about, I'm not going to go to it right now. I'll put something in the description afterwards. But we was talking about how basically one of the D groups is going to be in the north, and basically a long time ago. It's just something in 2020, whatnot. It just talks about, right here, basically it formed 45,000 years ago and whatnot. And it'll talk about that the haplogroup is Eastern Eurasian or East Southeast Asia. And it talks about these areas and whatnot. I'm not going to go over it right now, but DE is the split, and it's found in the upper area. So for some reason, D and E, all these were around each other. They split. and they went into different areas. But for some reason, CF was started over here. CF was over here, but R did not start with CF. R did come from CF, but R broke later. For some reason, CF, probably G. In fact, that's where you see a lot of early G's and F's over here. But when the K group went over here, that's where the R came from. Initially, it's a K. A K. Just to show that real fast, what I mean. Let me just show that real fast. Isham, I have a paper with two different Isham finds that were in the north, and that's actually on this one paper. I don't know why I didn't really go to that one, but there's an Isham I should probably show real fast. I think I closed it. If I close it, I gotta reopen it. Let me see if I did. See this open real fast. Just loading here. Otherwise, I'll just talk about it. This is something. This for something else. This is just. I'm gonna put this here because I was talking about pigmentation. Pigmentation is really a representation of people. This is an interesting study. I'll talk about it maybe do a short little live and just show a little something on how pigmentation changed just recently. But I'll show it from here real fast. That Isham, there's a couple different Ishams. There's not just one Isham. There's a couple Ishams. A reason why I say Isham because that's the oldest Indo-European found in Siberia. But that's where your R came from. We're gonna connect that R going downwards through Africa. But let me show that Isham real fast on here. I forget how you. That's some way you can search on this, but I don't know how you search. But I'm gonna grab that Isham on here. Show you that Isham.
If you go to search up top, you should be able to type in find.
Oh, right there, search. Maybe I can find it.
Type the word find. Oh, you got it. Never mind.
Oh, is this it?
Yes.
I don't know. Maybe it's not. Find it. All right, let me see if it'll go to it. Okay, there it is. Okay, so here's Isham, and you look at that year. Look how old this Isham is. This Isham is 45,000 years ago, and this Isham would be this K group. This K group makes all the R's and whatnot, but you can see that mtDNA. There's another Isham. There's an Isham, and there's another Isham on this list somewhere. I don't know. I'm not gonna look for it, but it's on this list. If someone ever gets into that stuff, you can. There it is, Isham. Another one right there. And you can see, get a little understanding. Still the same lineage, so same lineages and everything. Get a little understanding, but Isham is multiple peoples. Isham is not one person. Isham is multiple peoples. Our groups began in Siberia. That's where our groups began. They'll be a little different than your some of the G's, J's, and all other groups like that. But let me show you it on this thing. So you can see right here where you see K. If I close K right here, all the R groups close because this K makes all those groups. So that's going to be important. All the K's and his father is K dash M9. All the K groups are one monophylactic family. That's very important. And they're found in Saudi Arabia. So R comes out, and then it goes over here, checks out some of these guys, goes downwards, and it settles in Sumer. And then it goes downwards and it settles in Egypt, and we're gonna note that goes under through Africa, through Libya, and then it goes up into Spain, and then it becomes your modern European individuals today, who you see today. We'll go down a little bit. So that's what this map was. They basically come from here, and they settle in these areas, and they don't go further than this. They stop here. and they go downwards. Some go over here, some go through here, and they go downwards, and some settle in these areas, and some go down here and go over here. But their origins are over here. That's very important. But they go into these areas and settle in here, in Spain, and then settle in what you see today, a lot of places of Europe. And they talk about it. So right here, just a little bit of it. Just talk about some of those subclass and whatnot. Either descendants of more ancient lineages and whatnot from Russia and Asia Minor and whatnot. So some interesting finds right there. Some interesting finds. Obviously, these are the people that become. Some of them become the Chads, the V88 relatives of mine, V88 in Africa, but they would not be me. I would be more of a RM269. But I have brothers like Will or in different individuals that would be your E1B1A groups, and I think it's important we note migrations. But here a little more. They migrated southward in part, leaving their R1B haplogroup and their representative haplotypes behind over the Caucasus to Anatolia around 6,000 years before present. So that's going to be a Indo-European group because they're going to be settled in the Caucasus, Anatolia early on, earlier than the Shemites that go up there, the real Shemites, to the rest of Asia Minor and to the Middle East. So they go there a little later. The Armenes have apparently established the Sumer, basically several routes carrying mainly the R-M269 subclade and is downstream of L2 subclad. So just a little bit. Here's a little highlight from there. The reason why we're going to connect them because they become the Egyptians. A high percentage of R1B haplogroup is very unusual in South Mediterranean. According to the Assyrian project and whatnot, half of their R1B bearers belong to R-L23 subclad and whatnot. And just get some things from that. Go a little down. Where is it? Right here. They say this. Those are indeed Sumerian times. So it just says that basically some of the R groups go into the Sumer, and they say basically they settle in the lands of Sumer. So, when you look up Sumer, a lot of people of Sumer, they call themselves blackface, So they most likely was mating with the same women, which we find a lot of the R groups actually have a lot of L lineages as well later on. Those are indeed Sumerian times. Most of the bearers of those haplotypes now live in Iraq and Turkey. Another half of the Assyrian haplotype in project, mostly from Iran, have a slightly mutated classical European R1B haplogroup, pretty much, and just talks about basically that's the one that was settled in Iran and different things like that. But it says this R1B evidence is clearly a relatively recent event in Assyrian population brought from Europe. And it says, so in connection to Syria, so that's going to be more like Syria as in later Syria because Syria also becomes Indo-European. So your L23 subclad is clearly traced from Russia. So the origin of Russia Plain, South Visa Caucasus, where it prevails among R1B haplotypes via Anatolia, where it is very pronounced, down to South Mesopotamia, where Sumers had lived between 6,000 to 4,000 years before present. Since time span to common ancestors of those R-L23 haplotypes are around 6,000 to 5,000 years before present, it is quite likely that those common ancestors lived along basically the people in Sumer. It says they lived along with the people in Sumer and their ancestors. So that's something that's important, that people were moving in different areas. Right here, common lied among the Sumers and their common ancestors in the Caucasus and Anatolia. It might be an additional feature for linguistics, some of whom consider Sumerians as a remnant of a subgroup of the Caucasian language super family. So that's also important that they also move with their linguistics. So that's how we got to be careful. Like just because we find them in Sumer or in the Levant doesn't mean that they will be the Israelites. You know. But here's a connection connecting all those things together. So here we go. The researchers observed that the Neolithic Kadurka samples, I don't know if I said that right, Kadra samples, generally belong to different parental lineages. Then they're later basically Masoretic, post-Masoretic, and Christian period samples. Most of the Keduraka as individuals were now note what was in Egypt. Note the lines that was in Egypt. There's going to be ancient times and who was in Egypt. It's going to be a connection to Punt. So this is going to lead us to another study right here. Individuals were haplogroup AM113 bearers. So that's going to be your real Hamites. And this is going to be the area that we're talking about is this area. Let me actually a little lower. Because remember, there's Upper and Lower Egypt. This is actually Upper Egypt, and this is Lower Egypt. Up here is Lower Egypt. Down here is Upper Egypt. We're talking about individuals that were found in this area. And they found A there. They found AM13, and then they talk about, right? So AM13 was there older, right? Then the DE groups that came there, the haplogroup YAP that came there, which includes D M174 and E-M267, which is all your E's and whatnot, and haplogroup F-M89, which R comes from F-M89. Basically, what I'm saying is this: it's letting you know that the earliest Egyptians was not F groups or DE groups, but you're going to find out that they're going to be C groups and A groups. So right here, let me just close this. So it's saying that this, because this is where your F-M89, that's where R comes from, and J and IJK and everything. CF, DE, CF is Japheth, DE is Shem, A and B is Ham. The way that they break, you got to look on an unrooted chart to see how they break. A and B is Ham. So what it's saying, what it's concluding is the A Hamite groups were there first. Is what they're concluding there, is that they were there first, instead of the other ones during the Masoretic I'll probably say that weird, Rentic time frame, which the DE and the basically the CF groups or the F group comes there, because the C group is going to be there with the A group, but the F group was there first. So a little understanding on that. Little understanding. Here's where we go a little deeper into it. So just a little understanding. This map, I got this map from somewhere else, just showing what that source of the map is. We studied the distribution of Y chromosome specific haplotypes detected by such, right? On a total of 328 males, pretty much, of these certain areas here. I'm going to show you those afterwards. It says 3 haplotypes are basically seen. You know, these are going to be what we see. These are going to be the individuals that we see in basically. Let me actually click this so you can see what I'm quoting here. This is for Amos 9 and 7, right? So this area, what are we connecting here? Let's make a map, because we're going to start seeing certain R groups start to pop up, and they're going to become Egyptian leaders. That's very important. They become Egyptian leaders. That's how we know. So this area right here is going to be in connection. Why are we connecting this? Because they're going to be in connection to these different areas. So that's important. Sea peoples actually come from these areas and 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 these areas. So sea peoples basically come from the north. As Pella said, in all types of names of the sea peoples that made a confederation and came down against Ramses and stuff. But these individuals in the south is very important. And then it just talks about these individuals in the highlands of the censor. Let me actually, right here, just to get a little understanding what we're talking about here. So just talk about different haplotypes that were found there, and basically what you're going to see. I'm going to go on and continue. The reason why we're pointing it out, because we're going to note migration. So we're going to note migration right here. This study, which is here, let me make sure I close this. It's just ancient Egyptians. So I have to read this title. The reason why I was showing you that on the R lineage, you know why I was showing you the R lineage? I'm going to come back to this and show you why I was showing you that R lineage. But it says the ancient Egyptian hieroglyphic language was created by Sumerian Turks. So remember, who's the Sumerian Turks? The R1B group. The R1B group are the Sumerian Turks. That's what this was talking about. That the R1B was Sumerian Turks, or R groups that came down into Egypt, but they had connection with those upper areas of Anatolia and Turkestan and Russia and whatnot. Is what this talk about. But it's connecting what they found and everything when connecting certain hieroglyphs and whatnot, and talk about how these are all connected and whatnot. But that's what I was showing you with that R1B and whatnot. See that R1B belonging to R1B and whatnot. Close. Well, keep that there. Okay, so this one is going to talk about some other groups. Let me go up real fast. Talk about this one. Prehistoric migrations through the Mediterranean basin shaped remember that group that those individuals I was showing you is going to be from here. So it's going to talk about these groups real fast. So it says prehistoric migrations throughout the Mediterranean basin shaped basically the Y chromosomes in that area that I was showing you. What's that? Corsican groups. That's why you got your G group. Your G group is a older Indo-European group that was settled up there. That's why I was showing you those 121 samples throughout that area. Haplogroup G had the highest frequency in that area. But remember, we also know A was there as well. So remember, I showed you that A and C was there with those groups. They also had G and they had J and they had R. All these are under CF except A, which is the Hamites. Very important. But a lot of them are settling in the Hamite area. So very important. This study confirms the high level of genetic diversity in the Kushite population and back genetic contributions from prehistoric migrations associated with the Mesolithic, Neolithic, and Metal Age eras, rather than from historical movements from this area, Corsica, respectively. Probably said that weird. Attested by frequencies and the most recent common ancestor of haplogroups G and whatnot, J2 and R1B, whatnot. These results suggest that maritime routes to reach basically this area and many different points may have led to such genetic basically mixing and whatnot. So you see a lot of people, these ones, the J group and the G group and the R group came there by C. But the older groups that were there were the A, C, D, and F and I groups that were there. So A, C, D, and F and I groups. mtDNA, that was there first. So the mtDNA of these groups were there first. Let's get a little understanding. Your A2s and A3s and stuff like that. Get a little understanding on the ones that were there. And also they're still there. Some of those groups are still there. So very important. Around 70% of Spanish and 60% of Frenchmen also belong to the genetic group of the pharaoh who ruled Egypt more than 3,000 years ago. Here we go. We're going to connect Egypt with these individuals. We think the common ancestor lived in the Caucasus about 9,000 years ago, right? 9,500 years ago and whatnot. Isn't that what they say about the J group, that the JP58, something about 9,500 years ago, something like that. But it says it estimate that the earliest migration of haplogroup R1B into Europe began with the spread of agriculture 7,000 BC. So now we're going to get a little understanding on the movements into the Egyptians. Half of European men share King Tut's DNA. So you can see what's going on there. A little understanding for these things. We're going to go into this a little deep to get a little understanding on what's going on here. So the oldest human remains found so far in Castro Casterca are from basically Kampu, this area, whatnot, and are dated 8,940 basically years for present. And it lets us know that basically you could say 10,000, 9,000 said years ago. It says archaeological and genetic data suggests basically you know, they were in that area for a long time, and it confirms connections that those individuals have connections with Italy as well. So they confirm connections with ancient Italy as well. So that's something that's important too, that the individuals that will be in this area are going to have connections to ancient Italy. Why we're connecting all these? Because I'm showing you that the group that's in Egypt are originally from the north. That these people are originally from the north, and we're going to connect them because we're going to start looking at the genetic groups and everything and whatnot. So this just talking about the genome, and the connection says a genome analysis of those groups reveal a close affinity with northern and central Italy. So letting us know that they have a connection there. So this right here just talks about the Greeks established a certain city and whatnot. It's going to go down, and it's in historical records and everything. It's what they're talking about, and it talks about different individuals. This one I'm gonna skip. This one just has some summaries of stuff, and this one just talks about IJ, because when I showed you I and J was one. That's important. I'm gonna just show you real quick the migration of I and J real fast. So really quick, the migration of I and J. So here's a little understanding. So IJ, let me go to where that is on here. See if I find it, or maybe it's somewhere in here. But this. I'll skip this one because this one just talks about IJ, because IJ makes a lot of Indo-European groups like J2 and everything. That was just some extra information. I'm gonna skip that for now. But now let's talk about some individuals that we found. I'm gonna skip this one. This just talks about some of the mtDNA of Egyptians. I'll just show it for the sake of the live. This one just talks about the mtDNA of certain Egyptians 4,000 years ago, ancient mummy. So very important that they have mtDNA of M, pretty much, of M1A. So 4,000 years ago. Go up here. And right here. So now we're going to look at genetics of the people of Egypt. So with all that, we can get a little understanding on what's going on here. So we can see we got some E's in Egypt, but notice the years. You can see right there. So some E's went down there. Royal Egypt. But we also get B38, Royal Egypt. We get some other lineages there. So we get E groups into Egypt and everything, going into certain areas. But then we get other groups going. We got some J, M268. Remember, all CF, they're all related. We got some R groups going down there and everything. This is the R group I was talking about with the L3. And I was talking about they also moved with some L's. They also met some L groups. So that's important. They obviously, a lot of the lineages are going to be Indo-European that settle down there, the female lineages. These are female mtDNA. I'm going to go up real fast. You can see, so R groups, H groups, G groups, E groups that settled in the areas of Egypt. So up to 2,000 to 3,000 years ago. So you see what's going on there. So years ago. So that would be like, from 2000 BC to 1000 BC. So about that time. Because you can see there's said Ramses II and different things like that and whatnot in different areas. And then an unknown man in this area, which is actually V38 is E1B1A. So they say an unknown man with down there and whatnot. And remember, these genetics, these information I'm showing you, these years and everything, you just got to understand what's going on when we're understanding these things. So this is years before present, right? YBP, years before present. So take 2,000 off of all these numbers. All these numbers that you see here, take 2,000 years off, just to make it BC time. But here's some more people in Egypt. The reason why I'm showing you this is because Egypt had also a migration of people from the north. They had also people from the north. So here's leaders, right? R1B, R1B as one of the leaders of Egypt with a H mtDNA, and the rest of them have K mtDNA. Here's one with a G. This one has a G mtDNA. This one's just a female with a K. So sometimes they do look dark skinned. So you can see this one has a R1B. So he has R1B as well. This one has MRK group. So just a little information on certain mummies. A lot of them had R, but we do find other lineages there. Right here it talks about 147 Egyptians were E1B1B or J or G or even T or even R. So it's important to note migration and where they came from. What's their origin, right? What's the oldest fossils we can find? Not just guesswork and putting people there, but find out where they came from. So very important. Also in 2020, it just talks about some of the other finds they found. We talk about that R1. They just found this one in 2020, the R lineage with the L3 and the another E lineage with N. So a lot of different mummies found, and always these things always have their source cited, so you can always check the source to make sure it's right there. Now we already talked about a lot of the movement of these people, where they came from, a little bit, but now let's also, so you can see some other groups here. We're gonna connect them now, going back. We're gonna connect them to their final pieces. So let's get some more final pieces. So right here, remember we're trying to connect the ancient Levant with Egypt and everything. All right. So remember I showed you something that looks just like this. You see this right here? This looks fairly similar. We was talking about individuals like Gasulians and things like that. But there was people that came down and basically took the culture of some of the individuals and everything, what was going on there, right? Let me show basically what's happening here. So this just talk about the Canaanites, and in connection with different individuals and whatnot. I'm gonna just go something here. You can just see that they were working with metal already in the third millennia BC. Several kinds of metal were used in the Levant for both casting and hammering. So that's very important. Israelites did not have metal. That's very important. That's when you start to find an Israelite culture, when you find that they don't have metal. The first Israelites that settled there, it will tell you that that's why they beat their weapons. They made their farming tools into weapons. That's very important. That they didn't have. That was not a smith in Israel. There was no smith in Israel. Right? What scripture is? What verse is that? No. That's when they was going against the Canaanites, right? And it said that there was not a smith in Israel. So it's 1 Samuel 13:19, right? Now there was no smith found throughout all the lands of Israel. For the Philistines said, lest the Hebrews make them swords and spears, right? But they went down and sharpened all their weapons. Remember that saying, sharpen you your plowshares? That's where that comes from. That the Israelites had God to help them fight, right? So they made weapons and whatnot, but they didn't have any iron. That's very important. So very, very important to note that when noting the people of those areas and whatnot. Let's go back over here. We'll go down. So this just a little picture of this area. Let me read what it says here. Starting around 2000 BC, Canaanites began to infiltrate the Egyptian delta. So notice 2000 BC, Canaanites went into Egypt. So Canaanites went into Egypt, 2000 BC, right? And their donkey and caverns and whatnot can be seen on a number of Egyptian tomb paintings. So it's evidence, it's writings of these things and whatnot. By 17 BC, they had seized control. Note that 17 BC, the Canaanites seized control of the delta and established a local dynasty known as the Hyksos or Shepherd Kings. This period 17,000 to 1480 BC. So the Canaanites, remember we looked at the genetics of the Canaanite sea peoples? They're going to be an Indo-European people. So in Egypt, we start seeing an Indo-European dominance. Saw the development of a rich, imaginative, artistic style, and it was at this time too that the Canaanites developed the alphabetic writing system that was passed to the Phoenicians. So you see what's passed on to the Phoenicians. So it's letting you know the connection of all these things and everything. So little history on the Canaanites. I'm not gonna go over it, but that's just some. There's a lot of information on it. They know the Canaanites had migrated down there. Then I was looking at some genetics. Genetic analysis of ancient Egyptian samples has shown that they had strong affinities with populations in the Levant and Middle East. You already just said there. And so remember, who's in the Levant and the Middle East, though? We got to be careful with a lot of these. With only a small contribution from other African gene pools. So what's that small contribution, that E1B1B? They'll say that that's African. Be careful when you see that. When they say African, the E groups they'll call African, but the E groups are not African. That's very important. That's why we did this, so that you can see the roots of these lineages. That later, this is older than this one, but we do from here. We do get groups that go over here. Let's put a little thing right there. We do get E1B1B groups that go over here. We do, but that's after their origin. Their origin is in the Levant. There's no earlier ones than the ones in the Levant. So the E group does go over there. But remember, our group does that same thing. Our group comes from over here, as E groups come from over here. DE split over here, and they went down, and then they had settled in this area. But remember, we found that E groups also went over here. That's why I showed you one that was said 17,000. So E groups was over here, and then they went over here. The earliest A that's said over here is the one that Will has showed, that 12,000. But remember that A group was also over here. So let's also put that over here, that there was an A group that was over here as well. And remember that B group was there as well. So that R group. So that's nothing special to say that that's nothing to say, they must have been African just because they were here. But the R group went down there as well and went through this same way. This same design, the R group has the same design as this. That goes this far, goes down, and goes up this way. So that's something that's a note here. But this E1B1B shows that it's in these areas. But remember, E1B1A was here and here, we found in here, that goes down later on. But we also found it here before it went here. So this one was earlier than this one. So very important. That's E1B1A that we found here earlier than it went into Africa. Before it went to Africa, it went across seas. Who was it traveling with? Probably some seafaring people, right? Could it be even? It can be easily any one of the CF groups. So remember, CF. Then when it went over here, you made an Isham, and then it went throughout all these little areas, right? Very important. Very, very important. Let's get back over here. Get a little more into what's going on here. Get a little understanding on these things. Make sure. All right. Let me close that. You don't need that now. All right. So again, analysis of ancient Egyptian samples has shown that they have a strong affinities with populations in the Levant and Middle East, with only a small contribution with said African genetic pools. This was also observed in the individuals at a certain area who were closely related to ancient farmers that spread out of the Levant region and into Egypt. Remember, 90,000 years ago. Remember we was talking about R and everything? Let me actually copy this and show where this is. That's why we was talking about some of these things. So again, the connection of this area right here in Egypt and this area down here. So we got some other lineages going to these areas. So closely related to ancient farmers that spread out in the Levant 9,000 years ago. Let's look at some of these things. I'm just show you some finds that I found, a few ideas. Here's going to be this from academia, just to get a little ideas. So they just know that E groups were there. They call them African, but they weren't African. So they obviously, if you've seen the history of Upper and Lower Egypt, they basically pushed out Egypt was conquered by a new people, and you've seen it. The Canaanites came down there, seafaring people, very strong. Canaanites had iron. So here's some finds. You can see what you find there in the Egyptians, right? Long time ago, right? You get a lot of people talk about Ramses, but It's not like Ramses was the only one there, but you get others that were there, right? J2, J1, E1, B1B, G2. Um, the one that they had said was Ramses 3,200 years ago, right? That would bring you to 1200 BC. So right there, you can get a little understanding of some of these groups. Here's another set. This one is going to be your R1B. So you can see right there, that one we was talking about, these Egyptians, R1B, G2. You can see what's going on there. But let's find out who went down there. So remember how he was talking about the Canaanites, the trading relations of the 15th dynasty were mainly with Canaanites and Cyprus. Remember we was connecting some of those Cyprus, right? Cyprus has connection to Crete, right? Trade with Canaan is said to have been intensive, especially with many imports of Canaanite wares, and may have reflected the Canaanite origins of the dynasty. Now, what does he mean a Canaanite origin? Because if they're mainly trading with them because they have more connections with them. So they're trading a lot with the individuals. The kings of the 15th dynasty are said to have been Canaanite, right? So a little history of the 15th dynasty. Pharaoh Moses is known to have referred to whatever this one is, one of the kings of the dynasty, as chieftain of such and such, basically of Canaan. Well, he called one of the leaders a king of his dynasty, a chieftain of Canaan. The king of the 15th dynasty formed the second Asiatic kingdom in the Delta, covering an area which may have included Canaan itself. Although the archaeological record is sparse. Okay, so that's why genetics kind of makes these things clear. mtDNA, this just a thing to show what mtDNA they had there, right here. So it just lets you know what they had there. Just go down and just show it real fast. What mtDNA was in Egypt. These are all the mtDNAs that were in Egypt. So mtDNA. That was in Egypt. So go down a little bit. And what time frame was that? Mitochondria in ancient Egypt throughout times from 2000 BC to said 480. So you can see what's going on there. Light gray area show individual case and whatnot. Show you what's going on there. I'm gonna go down a little bit. So a little understanding. Now I'm gonna go back up. The reason why I was showing you all that, because if I go back up, what did we initially understand? We understood that the people in Crete, they had those A groups, but they also had that P group that makes your R groups. So in the areas of Crete, in upper areas, we get those individuals going downward. So Canaan was actually highly related. In fact, once you start doing a little history, the Hittites, the Canaanites, the Egyptians, the Assyrians, the Babylonians were trading with each other and calling each other brothers. They were calling each other brothers. In fact, it was called what was it called? The League of Nations? No, something like that. I forgot what they called it. It's pretty much a league of power. You know what that was called? I forgot what they call it. Exactly what they call it. It's a name. It was a certain name for the allegiance that they had with the nations at that time before the Sea People's invasion. Because what's interesting is when you think of all these different groups, there's only Ham, Shem, and Japheth that makes all these groups, right? There's A, B that are Ham. There's CF groups that are your J, I, J, K, and all that, T and all that. That's all from CF. Those are Japheth. And then there's your D, E groups, which are Shemites. So that's just very important when noting these things. So that's why you're seeing all these groups moving around these areas throughout these areas and settling these different areas. So just to get a little understanding, who is the Philistine? The Philistine would be the individuals who had came from the north and they had came down and settled in these areas. A little interesting little highlight from this, right? A little understanding. And talk about some of these areas. I talked about punt and things like that and whatnot, and different individuals. But getting a little understanding of who was in some of these areas, there's a lot of different information to it, but it lets you know about the A groups being the actual original African groups. But a lot of the places where you would think there would be African Hamites, you got to note through history that they were replaced. You got to note throughout history that it's historically recorded that a lot of individuals were replaced in different areas. So that's just something that's important to note. So who is the Philistines? They would be the Indo-European people that came downwards, that also has settled in the north. So remember, we was talking about that. Some of the individuals that were there said almost 9,000 years ago, right, in the Caucasus, but they also had settled in Egypt, who ruled in Egypt. So that's why we went over there. Around 70% of Spanish and 60% of Frenchmen also belong to the genetic group of the pharaoh who ruled Egypt more than 3,000 years ago. And then we talked about some of the connection of those groups and whatnot. So very important. So just understand that CF group is going to be that group that basically came from the north and went down. So now let's solve this now with something now, because I have I guess 20 more minutes before I go to work. Let's now go back to that Amos. So what did we just find there? This is why I'm telling you, this is the most beautiful, complex scripture of genetic information, and few people know it. Now, who are the Israelites? We just found out that E1B1B is the ones who homeland is in Israel, because it lets us know that the Syrians came from Ker, from the lands of Moab, right? And who was in that land first? Who was in Ker? Who was in the lands of the Jordan, where Moab is? E1B1B. So E1B1B will be the Syrians. And who will be the ones that came from Captor, that were known as the Sea Peoples, or the Canaanites, that had dwelled the lands of the area, right? The Philistines are actually going to be your Indo-Europeans, or in a sense, they were a mix of the Japhanites and the Hamites. Just to get a little understanding of that. More of the Japhanites, to understand that the Sea Peoples became more Indo-European. So they came downwards. Why would it call? Because it's saying the Philistines. Remember, a people can be called by the name of that place. So a people can be called by the name of the place. So that's something to also understand. But notice when we get this first part, are you not like the sons of Cush to me? Are you not like the descendants of Cush to me? Right? Are you not like the Ethiopians? Are you not like the sons of the Ethiopians to me? Right? You sons of Israel, says the Most High Yah, right? Did not Israel, right? Did not Yah, right? Bring up from the land of Egypt, right? Did not he bring Israel out of Africa, right? So that one we already know. E1B1A, we can do a major breakdown on it. E1B1A shows itself to be the Shemites. And I already talked about this before, but I'll point out real fast. I think that I must have closed one of these tabs. But E1B1A shows itself to be the Shemites. E1B1A shows itself to be not just the Shemites, but the Israelites. Why? Because the best source, there's a lot of sources to find out if they're the Israelites, but the best source is how the Israelites that were banished from Babylon, taken to Spain by the Arabians, which the Arabians, if you can find out who the Arabians are, which they are E1B1B, you can find out who's the Israelites. Because if the Arabians are Arabs, and they're also going to be in connection with some Ishmaelites, not all of them are Ishmaelites. I'm starting to think that E-M34 or E-M35 may be close to Ishmaelites. But they are gonna whoever's E1B1B, they're gonna be family of the Israelites. That's very important. That means direct siblings of the Israelites, and that's what we find when we look at E1B1A. If you break down the actual understanding of E1B1A unbiasedly, and actually use the real sources, right? Looking at E1B1A's origin from here, right? Being in these areas as well, going downwards into to these areas and these areas and these areas, it's important to know that there's a chosen line of that E1B1A, that M2, that becomes your Israelite lineage, right? I'm going to go down real fast and just something out and just make something clear. So, and also remember, yes, we must also remember that when Israelites came out of Egypt, they left with, it said that the Egyptian and the Edomite will become part of them. Well, you know what's interesting about that? Um, remember how it said, "Are you not like the Ethiopians to me?" and everything? That means they have to be in Africa, and you know they're constantly called Ethiopians. For example, Tacitus actually called them Ethiopians. Tacitus, first century um, Greek, actually wrote this in 55 AD, looking at the Jews before Jerusalem fell. Historian Tacitus, he wrote that the Judeans were a race of Ethiopian origin. Can an Ethiopian change their skin? Ethiopians don't change their skin. Ethiopian itself means blackface. He said that the Jews were a race of Ethiopian origin. And Ethiopia, all of Lower Africa, used to be called Ethiopia. You can see this old map. All of Ethiopia was all of this lower areas of Africa. That used to be Ethiopia. You can see right here, Abyssinia, right there. That wasn't Ethiopia long ago. Ethiopia was all of this. So that's Ethiopia. So they're saying that they were Ethiopian origin. They said the Jews were Ethiopian origin. That's what they were saying. So very, very interesting, huh? And let's look at one more thing. I just want to show you that the Israelites are a people that went northward, settled in the north, and became known as the people that you see today. So a lot of the people that you find in Africa, those are modern finds. You got to be careful when looking at modern finds, but there's a historical document of people in the lands of Portugal that were sent to Angola. That's going to be an area that's the Spanish had moved the Jews in Angola, and they took some of the people of Angola. And it's important to know that they know that the Jews were expelled to a certain island of San Tome. The reason why I want to show you this because the haplogroups that we found there matches exactly what the documents are saying about these Black Portuguese Jews that were apparently descendants who were despised by the Negroes and also descendants of the Negroes. And they settled in the island of San Tome. Talked about this before, that this is actually where the slave trade actually began. When they settled the Jews that were in Portugal, who started the slave trade? Spain. Spain actually was the one that actually implemented the slave trade and actually sent the people over here and took the ones who they sent to different islands, even their home, even the land that they went to a long time ago, even lands that they went to a long, long time ago. Probably find some E1 A's going in different areas a long time ago. But we did remember we found an E1A, E1B1A over here long time ago, right? So it had, and before it was in Africa, before it was even in Africa, it must have been in these areas and went over here. In fact, must have been over here and must have had took a ship and went over here somehow, some way. It's very important to know that E did travel overseas. But remember how we talked about that historical document? It's known that 2,000 children was taken to this island, and they were called new Christians. It's important to know that you can look in the way that they found these individuals, that they were unrelated individuals, and they found haplogroup, basically composition obtained for the Jewish descendants of San Tome. And if you look in their genetics, what you'll see there is a combination, just like what the scripture says, the Egyptians and the said, right? Esau would move with them. Some people say E1B1B is Esau. I don't think so. I think that this is a group that, because remember, Esau also married women of Ishmaelites. So it's possible whenever a leader, like Esau being a leader of all of the Edomites, whenever a leader marries into another person, it kind of binds two cultures together. We know this because ancient cultures, that's what they did. They gave their daughters and it will bind the cultures together. You'll see that in the Bible where it'll say, don't give your daughters to their daughters. Don't make an allegiance with them. That's what it's saying. E1B1B and R1B, remember it said the Egyptian and the Edomite would become part of Israel in the third generation. So when you think of, if you look up Jewish haplogroup, you'll see something like, I'll just type it down, Jewish haplogroup, right? Get a little understanding, and you'll see this. And remember, we already confirmed that J was from the Caucasus and came down, but notice this major mix. right? Why is so many different people? And they try to conclude that, well, Israel must have mixed in with a lot of these people. Well, we can note all these origins for these ones and everything. And they also have an E1B1B with them. But these aren't related, right? Except these. All these are CF. All of these are CF groups. That's very important. But if we go over here, we can see that E1B1A is going to be related to E1B1B. And those, if you was to say that the Ishmaelites and the Esau and all that, they would have been welcomed in by the promise of the covenant. They could have easily become Israelites when they left out of the wilderness. And some of our lineages could have possibly been mixed in, because remember, it said an Egyptian and an Israelitess woman were together. So very important to understand that an Egyptian, an Israelitess woman, or said Edomite, in the sense of understanding of that statement, when I'm saying that, were grafted in. So Esau married in with Ishmael, grafted in. If they convert to the way, they can easily this can easily be haplogroup of Israelites. Also, look at the mtDNA of that group. I already broke it down to understand that the L, especially L3 we found to be in connection with the Israelites. So very important. L lineages in connection to the female Israelites. Very important to understand. That's why I was showing you some of those things on those charts to get a little understanding. So this could easily be a family of the real Israelites, even the converts, even the converted ones that became one. Now, I'm not saying all of them. I'm not saying all of them are. I don't think all of them are. If all of them are, that'd be something. But I think that some of these are converts, and I think that E1B1A are the bloodline Israelites. I think M2 E1B1A are the bloodline Israelites. So that, and based upon all the historical reports, based upon all those finds, that's what we find to be true, and that we find this to be indeed the evidence that Israelites, the ones who went to Santa Tomé in different areas, are not going to be the ones that are the mixed mingle group of the Canaanites that has settled in the lands of Canaan, who they call Canaanites. Those are not the Israelites. Those are going to be people who are going to be the Philistines. So with that understanding, that's roots. What you just saw today was actually the ancient roots of people. So the E1 B1 lineages are going to be, this is going to be your Israelites, this is going to be your Syrians, and this line and everything underneath it is where you're going to get those the verses of different lineages of how you say sea peoples and whatnot. Now, I'm not saying all of them are, no, but I'm saying a majority of them are, with the A groups that mix with the A groups and some of the women of them. So with that said, family, if you have any questions, let me know. But that's the answer to what this is. That is making clear that the Israelites are actually a people that has settled in Egypt or Africa, lower areas, and are called the Ethiopians, or look like Ethiopian, right? Are you not like the Ethiopian to me, or the sons of Cush? And then we know that the Philistines are Indo-Europe people that came from Captor, and the Canaanites, who are the Canaanites, right? Think of Philistine giant, the one of the Canaanites, what was his name? Goliath and whatnot. Those ones were ones that also had settled in the areas of Captor and Egypt and Canaanite areas. So, and Syria are the E1B1B groups. Syria is the E1B1B groups. So, era. So, with that, that's all I got for you, family. I hope that you got something off of that. Maybe next time we'll go over the Gasulians and things like that on how the E group stays in Levant and is connected to Ker of Moab. So you can see Ker, right? Where's that area? Where the Syrians come from? Moab. So where the Jordan is. So now you see. So with that, family, I'll put these things in the description before I head to work. But if you have any questions, let me know. Otherwise, that's all I got for you, family. I hope that someone got something from that. And with that, see how you doing. Yep. See how you doing. Amen, man. Shalom, shalom. No problem. Amen. So with that, family, be blessed, be beloved, and amen.